Call to order the closed session meeting of September 23rd, 2024. The time is 5 p.m. Madam City Clerk, will you please call roll?
Councilmember Duncan.
Here.
Councilmember Gardner.
Here.
Councilmember Thorpe.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Venable.
Here.
Mayor Beaver.
Here.
All present.
Thank you, ma'am. Public comment?
No comments.
At this time, we'll move to closed session. The time is still 5 p.m. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Yucaipa. Good evening to our neighbors as well, because I see there's people here as well from just outside of our city limits. Welcome to the regular City Council Successor Agency and Housing Authority meeting of September 23rd, 2024. Before we get started, I want to apologize to those of you who were here at the last meeting. I had wrongly assumed that we were talking to the same folks who have seen our council meetings before and know the rules. I will be more patient today, and I hope that we can maintain a sense of civility and follow the decorum for the council chambers as we progress to this meeting. So again, I apologize to everybody who was at the previous meeting before the fire canceled that one. All right, Captain Walker, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand, face the flag. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, will you please call roll?
Councilmember Duncan.
Here.
Councilmember Gardner.
Here.
Councilmember Thorpe.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Venable.
Here.
Mayor Beaver.
Here.
All present.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. City Attorney, is there any changes to the report out of closed session? I'm sorry, is there anything to report out of closed session?
Thank you, Mayor. On item A on the closed session agenda, the City Council gave settlement direction by consensus. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, changes to the agenda this evening.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We're going to need to pull item 11 from tonight's agenda, and we will plan to take that up at the October 28th meeting.
Okay. Do you need a vote for council for that, or is that staff pulling it?
No vote necessary.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to our public safety update, I'd like to, unless any of you gentlemen have any objections, I'd like to just go ahead and table that for the next meeting, and we'll move right on to business to move through this meeting faster. Any objections?
No objection.
Okay, perfect. City council conflict of interest disclosure. Any member of the council have any conflict of interest to disclose? None. Consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve items 1 through 19 with the exception of 11?
I'd like to pull 7 and 9 for just questions.
7 and 9. Okay, so is there a motion to approve items 1 through 6, 8 and then 10, and then 11 through 19?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Councilman Duncan, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Venable. Any further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. All right, item number 7. This will be by...
Mr. Mayor, if we could take up item 9 first. I believe the city clerk is looking for the correct staff person to address item 7.
Understood. Okay, item number 9. This is going to be fiscal year 24, fiscal year 25 budget adjustment report by Mr. White.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council. Item 9 is the quarterly budget adjustment report. Should be coming up on the screen pretty quickly here. This is a standard quarterly budget adjustment report. As we go through the budget process, it starts with the planning where City Council provides directive on what should be included in the budget for fiscal 25. We did that in the April to May timeframe of 24. Ultimately, staff takes that direction back, compiles a budget, and that city manager's proposed budget comes before you, and that was adopted in June. Once we have an adopted budget, we execute that spending plan. So the budget is our spending plan. Staff is charged with executing the spending plan that is adopted by City Council. As we go through the process, once it's adopted, the execution part, we have cleanup items that get brought before you. Some of those require council approval. Some of those are informational items. We have both of those in the 5 attachments tonight. But just a quick recap on that budget process. In the planning phase, City Council was provided 2 options. One is to slash service levels to the amount of revenues immediately and have a balanced budget, or alternatively, which was chosen, hold service levels intact, work with the community on an update going forward, and kind of kick that can one more time down the road. So we took option 2 with the idea of accumulating information for the fiscal 26 budget direction. When we took that back to the departments and said, okay, hold service levels, what can we do? The first time around, the information that came back, we had a greater than $15 million deficit. And so we said, we can't go to council and ask for that to be adopted. Let's sharpen our pencil and start cutting. So this list is all the things that we were doing in-house to cut as much as we could do. So we get, the first 3 are public safety. Public safety had a lot of cuts. The first one, public safety personnel, I want to highlight that that's not existing personnel. We did not cut existing personnel, but specifically in paramedic, there were additional personnel being proposed, and those were excluded as we were making these cuts. Same thing with public safety vehicles and equipment, and public safety trainings and other operating costs. We just were slashing. One of the items tonight is we got a little excited with our red pen slashing. One of the items, the CERT program specifically, got slashed, should not have been. We're still providing that service, still benefits the community. And so that's one of the requests coming back is the CERT item. But you can see the other items as well. As we jump down into the staffing, we did make changes in staffing before the budget was adopted. A couple things to highlight, those last 2 bullets under staffing. The non-critical positions that were vacant, those remain vacant. So the budget's in the number, but the positions were unfilled, and so those were frozen positions. The other one is we took out the budget, defunded 5 positions, and so 2 of those positions were in community development. 1 was in development services, 1 was in finance, and there's another position in IT. Those 5 positions, those are authorized positions, but have been defunded, pulled out of the budget. Our list of deferred maintenance, if you ask Scott Washburn, it's a lengthy list. We've never been able to work through that list of deferred maintenance. In the 25 budget, we included somewhere between 10 and 15% of that list, but that means that 85, 90% of deferred maintenance is still not in the number. And then the last bullet, operating budget fluff. The way that the city has historically budgeted, for example, salaries, we took in our range the top step of every position, and that's what we included as a budget number. What we did this year was put actual steps, and so it tightens up the budget number, but it removes all the fluff in the budget. And so our expenditure number this year is going to be closer to budget than we've ever been. All the fluff has been excluded. Ultimately, when you guys saw this in June, we got down to a $7.3 million deficit, which $7.3 million deficit is not great. But based on the directive of spend in the deficit one more year, kick the can, 7.3 is what we considered the best we could do. But keep in mind, we started at over $15 million, so $8 million has already been cut out of that budget. One more thing to highlight with the spending in deficit. That does not mean we have $0 in the bank. We are paying our bills, and with the spending plan, as it was sold to you, is we can spend in the deficit, gather information, and decide how we're going to fix this long-term going forward. So eventually we will run out of money. That will not be this fiscal year with all of that information. So with that, we'll get into the details of this item. There's 5 attachments. Attachment 2 and 4 are considered staff-approved adjustments. So staff has, based on our budget policy, we have the authorization to approve certain adjustments to the budget, and those are very specific. And what those are is within a division, if we're moving things from one spending category to another spending category, staff can say, yeah, go ahead and make that budget change within that division. As an example, up here on your screen, we've got the fire fund, which is authorized by me, Director of Finance, but we're moving things out of professional services and into equipment repair and maintenance. And so $22,000 was reduced from professional services and added to equipment repair and maintenance. Attachment 2 is all the fiscal 24 items like that. Attachment 4 is all the fiscal 25. So a net zero budget adjustments, which is moving them between spending categories. Attachment 1 is what I've called the rollover budget adjustments. Typically, we don't need to bring those before you because we have fluff in the budget. And if there's a rollover necessary, the following year's budget can absorb that. Because we're so tight this year, we can't absorb rollover budgets. And what rollover budgets are is if we procured something using the fiscal 24 budget, say on June 29th, we bought something, we had the available budget in fiscal 24, but that item wasn't delivered until July 15th, so it spanned the fiscal year, and then we got the bill for it, say in August. When we go to pay it, we need that, the budget lapses at June 30th, so we need the next year's budget in order to pay it. Because of that overlap, when we hit the 25 budget, there's no fluff in the budget, and so we're spending the same amount, but because of the timing, we need the budget from 24 that we procured the item to pay the item as well. So those are all the rollover budgets included there. There's one, the outlier on that is Tropical Storm Hillary, which has its own section in the attachment, a little bit more nuanced, but all the detail is in there. But that covers all of attachment 1. Again, no increases to total spending. In fact, the Hillary item is a reduction in total spending. But we're moving in between budgets, and when we do that, we need council approval. This is a council approval necessary attachment. And then the last 2 attachments, attachment 3 and 5, are additive or deductive for fiscal year. So in fiscal 24, attachment 3, there's 2 items. Neither one of them impacts the general fund, and it's the movement of funds from one fund to the other, and it's a net zero. So funds outside the general fund are moving dollars between them, net zero on that one. And then attachment 5, which is the fiscal 25 budget. This has both additive and deductive items in it. The net of all of those items citywide, all funds, is an increase of $1,800 from a budget standpoint. There's a lot of different items there. A lot of them take money out of one fund into another fund. I did highlight here the general fund impact specifically. So again, $1,800 total citywide. The first item, the data input error in the sports division, that's an increase of $14,800 in that division. The second item, the reduction in salaries allocated elsewhere, it's a $55,000 decrease to the general fund. The next item deals with a grant funding for senior service drivers. It's part-time employees. It's a cleanup item, again, grant funded. And then the last one, the capital improvement project. We had a project that came in under budget, so we are reducing that budget by $28,000, and that detail is also in that item. As we did meet with the Finance Committee last week, and there were several questions on this item specifically, so I do appreciate the opportunity to provide additional context in the process and what these specific items are, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Venable.
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Is there a motion to approve item number 9?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Thorpe. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item number 9. Item number 7, Arctic Wolf renewal.
Good evening, council. My name is Kevin Johnston. I'm the IT manager. I don't have a presentation for you, but this item is for the renewal of Arctic Wolf. In August 9th, 2021, the city council approved the purchase of 90 licenses and 2 site sensors for cybersecurity services. We originally had a 3-year price agreement with Arctic Wolf that expires on 9/25. So as far as the purchasing policy is concerned, we need to seek council approval for purchases over $50,000. And our first renewal year will be $63,000 with a 5% increase every year after that. We also had to increase our licensing from 90 users to 155, along with 3 site sensors. That's based on increased staffing, as well as network changes that are related to SD-WAN configuration. That changes the reliability of the network, but it also changes the outbound network connections. And that's why we need additional sensors. Sorry, little nervous.
That's
This is the
okay.
first one
I
since
just
I've
had a
been
couple
here.
of questions on it and
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, it shows the 63,388 for 1 year, 71,093 for 2, and 74,648. And we're only renewing it for 1 year. Why wouldn't we go for the 3 years on that discounted?
I'm sorry, it's a 3-year price agreement. So
Oh, it is 3 years. Oh, okay.
it's a 5% increase year over year.
So we're at 74,648.
We'd be at 63,388. We actually have a $4,320 credit for this first year. So the 5% increase is calculated on $67,708. And then 5% increase for year 2 and another 5% after that.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was just wondering. I didn't know if we were going after just approving for the 1 year and why not the 3? So it is the 3 years.
For 3, yes.
Okay, all right. I'm good then.
Any further questions? Thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
we see
sorry.
we see in the news all the time that there's municipalities that are getting hijacked. I think our county got hijacked. It costs millions of dollars to recover data and honestly protect the personal information of our customers. Our customers are the citizens of Yucaipa and people who do business here, so it is critical. And these numbers they are big, but certainly recovering an entire network of sensitive information sometimes is ransomed for millions of dollars. And the unfortunate truth is the age we're living in, our digital software has to be protected. So is there any further questions of staff?
Nope, but I'll make a motion.
Motion by our Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Thorpe. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. That concludes our consent agenda calendar. And we'll move on to public hearings. I will open item number 20. Hold on a second. Before we go to that public hearing, I'm gonna go back. I did skip in general public comment. So we'll go to general public comment.
Mayor, we do have general public comment at the end.
Did I skip that? Oh, I see that now, okay. All right. So what am I missing? All right. So we'll go back to item number 20, the Wildwood Canyon Mobile Home Estates and Valley View Mobile Home Park revenue bonds. The time of this public hearing is 6:18 PM. And I will hand it over to Director Phil White for a staff presentation.
Thank you, sir. Item 20 is the request to hold a Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act public hearing, a TEFRA public hearing, and also to, for the City Council to adopt resolution number 24-55. Augusta Communities is a nonprofit that is planning to finance the acquisition of Wildwood Canyon Mobile Home Estates. The financing will also fund renovations at Valley View Mobile Home Park, and Augusta Homes, or Augusta Communities also owns that park. As required by the method of financing, bonding, a public hearing is being held at the city in which the parks are located here in Yucaipa. The bonds are being issued through the Independent Cities Finance Authority, ICFA, of which Yucaipa has been a member since 2002. The debt and any related costs are not obligations of the city of Yucaipa. Augusta Communities is taking on all the payment and everything. Since they're located here in Yucaipa, we're obligated to hold the hearing. Suzanne Taylor is the Executive Director of Augusta Communities, and she is here and available to answer questions as we go along. I do not believe that she has a presentation to kick it off, so we can proceed.
Perfect. So the next item for the public hearing is the applicant representative presentation. If she does not want to be heard, hearing none, we'll move on to public comments. We have public comments for this item now. No public comments for item number 20. And therefore, there will be no applicant rebuttal. Hearing no objections, I will close the public hearing. It is 6:20 PM. And we'll move on to council discussion. Are there questions of staff or any discussion items relative to item number 20? No?
No.
Seen it before, okay. Is there a motion to approve item number 20?
I'll move.
Motion made by Councilman Thorpe,
I'll second.
seconded by Councilman Duncan. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Director White. Moving on to the Freeway Corridor Specific Plan Update, case number 24-044, and Pacific Oaks Commerce Center, 21-196 CUPARC TPM. I will open the public hearing. It's 6:21 PM. And I will call up the presenter, Mr. Ben Matlock, for the staff presentation.
All right, thank you all, well, Mayor and City Council members. I will provide a presentation on the Freeway Corridor Specific Plan Update, as well as the Pacific Oaks Commerce Center, which is a project proposed within the specific plan area. I will provide the details of kind of the plan, the analysis of the updates that are proposed, as well as the details of the Pacific Oaks project for your guys' consideration. So quickly, this just kind of shows an area of where the Freeway Corridor Specific Plan is with the kind of proposed land use map. Quickly, I'll get into just as a background. So specific plan itself is to implement or is used as a tool to implement the general plan and provide specific requirements within a generalized area or a specific area of the community. So it is one of the tools that is used for the general plan. It's helpful for kind of systematically figuring out how an area develops. So it goes a little bit more detailed than just the zoning code, where it goes into implementation, phasing, infrastructure, and a lot more of those details to figure out what those pieces are, the puzzle pieces that result in the development, and provide kind of that tailored approach for a specific area rather than just the general zoning classifications that would be in the municipal code. Now, I do want to note quickly, the city already has a freeway corridor specific plan. It does already call for the development of 2445 dwelling units. It has 172 acres of commercial, 25.7 acres of
of business park, and then public utilities, and then the remainder being as open space. And so the freeway corridor itself has been part of the city's kind of general plan since the onset. So this is a quote from the 1992 and 2004 general plan that references capitalize on commercial and industrial opportunities along the I-10 freeway in balance with the demands of commercial development. So this has been kind of the guiding light since city incorporation for the freeway I-10 corridor. And then in 2005, the city council formally directed the preparation of a specific plan for what is now known the Freeway Corridor Specific Plan, which is on 1,200 acres along the area from kind of Live Oak Canyon, Oakland Road to County Line Road, kind of that area that is mostly vacant with just a kind of a few structures that are in between, and then the pumpkin patch. So in 2006, the city council then reviewed kind of the land use approach of what the Freeway Corridor Specific Plan was going to entail, and then directed staff at that time to prepare the environmental impact report for that specific plan. And then in 2007, the specific plan was in the public hearing process. Went to the Planning Commission in November of that year for consideration for city council. However, during this time, an important piece was happening, which was the city's housing element update at that time, which really called for a lot more affordable housing sites. So the city council, as part of their strategy for dealing with the regional housing needs assessment, said, hey, we have this bid vacant area that we're planning for commercial, industrial, and residential development. We should add some of the affordable housing sites on there, and so directed staff to amend the specific plan draft and provide those affordable housing opportunities in that plan. And then this was ultimately adopted in 2008. As part of the changes, it did include the new R24 district and add a lot more affordable housing, along with the commercial and industrial uses were considered, and was approved by the city council in November of that year. And then a number of things kind of changed with the market. So certainly you had kind of the financial crisis, you had a change of how people shopped, certainly the rise of Amazon and other kind of e-commerce activities brought a lot more people to order stuff online versus at storefronts. And then certainly the cost of housing increased with that. And then certainly if anyone shopped at a Target or Walmart recently, the experience is not as friendly as it used to be with, a lot of stuff locked behind gates. And so the customer experience for commerce has certainly shifted since the plan was initially kind of in motion in 2005 and adopted in 2008. And so in recognition of that fact, when the city adopted its comprehensive general plan update in 2016, the focus on the freeway corridor became a lot more deliberate. There was a number of policies and direction for the freeway corridor. In fact, the general plan has two different high-level goals and a whole set of policies specific to the development of the freeway corridor specific plan. So the emphasis on economic development and land use development for the freeway corridor became a greater emphasis. And this was through a multi-year review by the GPAC, EDAC, so the General Plan Advisory Committee, the Economic Development Advisory Committee, the Planning Commission, and City Council, that included those provisions for City Council's adoption of that 2016 general plan. And so with that, the city had, through kind of multi-year, sought grant funding to help support the update to the Freeway Corridor Specific Plan. And so for the City Council, provided direction on the update, which was to kind of do an evolution of the existing plan, not necessarily a wholesale change of it, but really just looking at where has this specific plan failed in the past, why has it not really come to fruition. And then certainly another component was the freeway corridor being a hub for future housing to meet state law requirements. Because of changes in state law, we may not be able to claim a number of those housing units into the next housing cycle. And so the goal was also make sure that we can get credit for it by addressing some of the impediments that were in place with the existing plan. And so certainly the freeway corridor specific plan, the direction from City Council at that time was to address a few different things. First and foremost was the changes in market demand. The market in 2005 that guided the initial development of the freeway corridor specific plan and what is the market today is very different. And then also some inconsistency applications. So one thing that's very important to note is while we talked about the 25 acres for business park, the land uses and the description of those land uses between business park and regional and commercial are indistinguishable. So in terms of, let's say, industrial development, warehousing, it's allowed in both, it's called out in both districts, and so that may have not necessarily been the intent. And then the last part was it called for open space to be natural, but it included a number of areas that were either already under agricultural uses, grazing, or had prior grading, weren't necessarily completely natural because they had already been disturbed or continued to be disturbed by those different operations. And then also looking at it is kind of the post-freeway corridor specific plan projects. An example is the Brookfield warehouse that's being developed in the regional and commercial district off of County Line Lane. It's allowed use on it, but may not have reflected the regional and commercial intent of the specific plan, even though it is conforming with the code requirements. And then another component was the pumpkin patch conditional use permit. Certainly the operators of the pumpkin factory have continued goals to run it. They've started their season this year, but certainly the Freeway Corridor anticipated that site being developed, and more importantly, Oak Hills Parkway, a main thoroughfare for the Freeway Corridor going right through the middle of the pumpkin patch facility, as kind of shown here. And so the phasing for what would have been the Freeway Corridor essentially would have severely disrupted the operation of the pumpkin patch into the future in order for those other sites to come to fruition without other changes necessary. And so with their continued goal for that is working through the phasing and figure out a solution that can better accomplish the growth of the specific plan without endangering the operations that are currently there. And then certainly the last component is the Freeway Corridor specific plan elements with the general plan update. Had goals for commerce, housing, variety, tourism, and other uses. And then the housing element update identified changes needed to address housing sites. So as a kind of high level component, the state law says that if you have a site zoned as a affordable housing site in your housing element, but it does not get approved through 2 different housing element cycles, is deemed automatically infeasible. So if you had, let's say in the Freeway Corridor, we have 2,400 units planned in that, but once the second cycle goes through, the state says, we don't think that will ever get built. So those units that you thought you could build now have to be rezoned elsewhere in the community in place of it. And certainly the property owners that have the land use rights to that may not necessarily want to lose all 2,400 units and be downzoned from that as well. And so it does make it a little bit more of a messy kind of future without some sort of intervention to address the deficiencies on the plan and show that there is a way to see that come to fruition. And then again, the Freeway Corridor has always, as I referenced in the 1992 and 2004 general plan, as well as the 2016, was always seen as a hub for commercial and residential growth. However, given that it hasn't really built out, has been ineffective to meeting those general plan policies. And so with update, the direction from the city council was maintain an evolution of the plan, keep the high level goals and policies, take input from property owners on some of the challenges of the existing plan, and really try to figure out where the market has gone, provide flexibility in the future, and then certainly provide commercial activity to keep pace with the infrastructure investments the community has already made. So allowing those kind of commercial opportunities, the sales tax generating uses to come to fruition as part of what had been the plan since city incorporation. And so this is the existing Freeway Corridor specific plan kind of land use table, kind of showing the development. And then this is the update that's proposed, really kind of focusing on the projects that we have in the pipeline, as well as just some of the deficiencies, or, and more important, some of the infrastructure costs that was part of the original plan that was infrastructure investment for the sake of investment, not necessarily something that we need to do. And so it's looking for ways to avoid some of those expenditures by the city in terms of developing the specific plan. And so as part of it, the total change of the land uses that's contemplated is an increase of 25 dwelling units total through the entire plan. So 2447 is the existing zone capacity. 2472 is the update, and then the land use non-commercial or non-residential land uses increases by 500,000 square feet. With the changes of the commercial types of uses, the actual total traffic that would be generated by the plan is actually a net reduction from what would be the old plan, the 2008 plan being built out. Now, in terms of the residential districts, really kind of staying within the same kind of realm of the housing category. So we went from low-density residential units to the high-density, the R24. This remains in place. However, we've added in a new district, which is the R12, which is a lot more where the market demand is for first-time homebuyers and kind of that moderate income startup families that are looking for a house. And so that has been introduced into it, provide kind of that mid-density, and then also reconfiguration for the land that's available, and then again, avoiding sensitive areas that would substantially increase the project costs or the city's maintenance liabilities into the future for infrastructure that we can avoid otherwise. Then as part of the non-residential districts, we do retain the open space, which is meant for kind of the greenbelt area around development, still allows for ag grazing and then the transitions as well as multi-purpose trails. And then we've added in the open space conservation. The areas that were meant to be protected in the original plan, this is where they remain. And so it is really to help kind of address areas that are more costly to permit, more costly to mitigate, and certainly areas that were identified by the city council as kind of viewed corridors that we should preserve, and so that is part of the open space conservation. And then one of the districts that's been added in is the agro-commercial tourism. This is for the pumpkin patch facility and really providing the flexibility for their uses. The existing freeway corridor specific plan doesn't really fit the mold for what they're wanting to do on the site and how they kind of operate, and so this really takes where they're at and trying to, their environment that they're trying to foster, make sure that that is protected with the update. And then certainly one of the big changes is to avoid having them to build a road through the middle of the pumpkin patch for the other areas of the freeway corridor specific plan. The other areas, regional commercial, is tailored a lot more, so it's focused on the retail and shopping based uses. So the warehouses that were allowed in the existing plan don't fall under here, but they are tied into the business part, so it's focused on that business, office, and warehouse uses. And so really areas that are more forward-facing, let's say along I-10 freeway, when you get off Live Oak Canyon or Oakland Road, that wouldn't be a warehouse, it would be the retail uses, the warehouses would be in a different location. And then again, note on the uses, they have been planned in the area. And then right now, if you read the RC and business park, warehouses are allowed in that. So if I read the existing specific plan, the land use intent to provide sites for stores, lodging services, office and professional services, recreation, entertainment services, wholesaling, and warehousing. So right now, the existing plan does allow for that. And so the goal was, especially with kind of the lesson of the Brookfield project, was maybe that isn't what we want to see right off the freeway, and so the prime freeway exposure and core areas are meant for the retail and customer-focused uses. And then as part of it, we did update the circulation of it. It does tie into the future Wildwood Canyon Road interchange, provides the connectivity through the specific plan site, and then one of the key components is avoiding the pumpkin patch for providing a main thoroughfare, and then certainly addressing multi-purpose trails throughout the plan area as well. One thing I do want to note, since it is on the minds of everyone with pumpkin patch season, is the traffic counts that we did for the Freeway Corridor specific plan update was taken during this time last year. So during the peak traffic of pumpkin patch season, we wanted to see, okay, if pumpkin patch is going, which is a seasonal activity, and then the project is built out, how does a roadway work? And is it going to improve the flow? And so that was a big component from council's direction was, hey, we want to make sure that we can mitigate and handle the traffic to minimize the disruption to residents. And so the roadway improvements included in the plan are meant to address that heavy peak flow, which is during the October season rather than the year round. So we've front loaded the traffic to give a much more conservative requirement to address that community sentiment. And then one of the components with the proposal that we've included is update to the general plan map. The freeway corridor is the only land use area in the general plan that's called out separately as the specific plan versus any other specific plan. So the Oakland Creek specific plan, the Uptown, none of those have their own separate land uses from the specific plan included. And so a cleanup item is to rezone that as planned development. So then that way it's consistent on the approach. And then the city does intend to update a number of our specific plan area maps to be consistent, just so that the reference when you're reading the general plan as a customer, trying to go, what is the requirements? You're not pulling up something that's not germane to what you're looking at. So we want to make that a little bit more transparent and easier for our customers. And then, as I noted, the Freeway Corridor specific plan is listed in as a separate goal within both the community design and land use section and the economic development chapter of the general plan. The housing element also has strategies that continue to rely on the Freeway Corridor. And then based on the general plan as adopted today, over 60 policies relate to the proposed update. And being able to meet that. Again, as part of the history, the general plan had always set this as priority area for development into the city's future. Now, what's unique about this kind of project, as you guys have tonight, is you have a project within a project. So the specific plan sets the standards for different entitlements that show up. As we started working on the update for the specific plan, proposal came in at the same time for the Pacific Oaks Commerce Center. And so rather than us go through our update and them go through their own update process and then hope that at some point everything connects, we tried to kind of package everything together. That way we knew one project wasn't creating inconsistency with another. Whatever they needed to do for infrastructure tied into the rest of the specific plan and vice versa. And so this includes a 312 acre site, 95 acres as open space. They do have a 61 acre area for residential. And then 2 different industrial buildings, approximately 1,000 or 1 million square feet of each one, and then additional truck parking on 29 acres. Now, the Pacific Oaks project is off of Live Oak Canyon Road. This is I-10 up here, and then it would have its own separate road that connects on here, then connect to the future Wildwood Canyon Road interchange. And then they would be responsible for providing the roadway, water, and sewer infrastructure for the Freeway Corridor along this entire area as well. And this includes widening both Oakland Road into 4 lanes, adding a new signal and turn lane at Live Oak Canyon towards a new road, and then also the road to serve the warehousing units. And then as part of it, just for kind of reference, the different sections of when you get to their actual site, they've designed the driveways to be pretty long as well, so then that way any trucks that could be queuing in the area are able to do it outside of the public right-of-way. So there's over 1,000 feet on 3 of the different entrances for the site. And then the last one, D, is the shortest one, which is still over 500 feet. And so one of the unique elements about the Pacific Oaks project, and this was part of the direction from City Council, was certainly warehouses aren't necessarily the most attractive buildings. They're pretty large. And so really was focused on, okay, if they are there, rather be hidden in plain sight than right off the 10 freeway. And so they've designed their site to shield the buildings from the public view. So these are renderings of the site from I-10 and the Live Oak off-ramp. This green is where their property line is, and the warehouses are located behind that. And so the net result is the warehouses would not be seen from the passing traffic. On it, the applicant does have a video that goes into that, and that was included. And then this is the floor plans of those units. And then they have provided a architectural plan for the projects that utilize as a farmhouse type aesthetic for the buildings, with massing and variety of changes occurring along the building face to help break up the size of the building. Project was reviewed at the June 5th, 2024 Plan Commission meeting. Primary discussion focused on the pumpkin patch site and making sure that the viability, the vitality, and the value of their site is upheld. The Plan Commission voted to continue the item to allow for additional coordination between staff and the pumpkin factory ownership. And then discussions from that kind of focused on 2 paths. One was either removing them entirely from the Freeway Corridor or making some additional changes, clarifying elements. Pumpkin patch ownership requested to remain in the plan, and the changes that are shown in the errata sheet address their potential concerns or help clarify elements that they wanted to know as they move into the future, how everything works together. And then it was brought back to the Plan Commission meeting on July 17th, 2024. The discussion focused on the agro-commercial tourism again, and kind of making sure that the pumpkin factory ownership was agreeable. They know they was, noted that they were. There was a motion made in support of the Freeway Corridor. However, there were 3 votes for no, and so that motion therefore died without necessarily any formal action beyond it, other than just procedurally it did not carry through for the motion that was provided. And then going into the environmental review, so the city, as part of the public review process, did do a supplemental EIR, environmental impact report, on the existing Freeway Corridor specific line and the changes that are proposed with this update. This is the timeline it started with the notice of appropriation in 2022, and then the final SEIR and response to comments were provided in May of this year. And as part of it, a number of technical studies were done, both as a holistic approach to this specific plan, so all the changes that are contemplated, as well as the Pacific Oaks Commercial Center, Commerce Center, their specific project impacts too. And so with that, kind of key takeaways is air quality and greenhouse gases remain significant and unavoidable. The Freeway Corridor was already of that, and certainly having new development will trigger that. And then noise impacts are also significant and unavoidable. The location is adjacent to the I-10 freeway. And so with all that regional commercial activity falling within that noise overlay, mitigation is just not feasible because we'd have to mitigate land on Caltrans property, and that's impossible to do in order to address just the traffic that's already happening along that freeway. And then the remaining impacts are actually less than significant. We did receive some public comments. Kind of notable one was from the GSEJA, which kind of reiterated their comments on the SEIR. We did provide responses to that. They have since withdrawn their concerns on the project. We have received a number of written comments, a lot on the concern over warehousing development and loss of rural environment. Most of the concerns relate to specifically the warehouse development in general. There were some comments in favor of the development approach, as well as the fiscal opportunity for the city with the commercial and industrial uses. And then the kind of most notable one kind of remaining is Robinson Ranch had concerns over the commercial area acreage and their desire for additional warehousing uses potentially on their property. I do want to note Freeway Corridor focuses really kind of commercial areas on areas that don't require as much infrastructure to build to help kind of minimize some of the environmental impacts and make it easier for those properties to develop versus challenging for the sake of spending money. And then there was a number of comments related to the Active Preserve that is located in Redlands. A rendering was done by the applicant showing their viewpoints. So where you're at on different viewpoints to the Active Preserve, you're not able to see their proposed project. From those, the green does show the property line, but the warehouses that would be in the background are beyond the line of sight. And then so we have prepared a rata sheet that shows some changes. A lot of it was the coordination between the pumpkin patch and staff. The AT, the agricultural tourism district, is changed to agro-commercial tourism and provide a lot more kind of details about the experience that they provide on site. And I do appreciate the work that we had with their team to make sure that their ideas and concerns were addressed in the errata sheet. And then certainly just some other kind of procedural stuff, making sure it's consistent with the specific plan, and then certainly correcting any typos that may be with it. And then again, some additional elements added per the Robinson Ranch discussions. They had some clarifying details, and then they wanted some amended thresholds for amendments along the specific plan. I know that they still have some concerns with the specific plan as a whole. With that, I do want to go into last, just kind of a regional context. So certainly the market has shifted. Commercial land area demand for online shopping has kind of shifted the balance a little bit. Regional commercial centers right now include the areas of Beaumont and Redlands. And so an area between the two can be sustained, but as we reached out to a number of different commercial brokers, developers, and people that are in the industry, having multiple centers in between the two different hubs are not going to be viable based on the development patterns that we have. And so just for kind of context, this is our specific land here, and then these are a few different projects in the city of Calamasa. This is the Mesa Verde specific plan right here. And so we have 3 different kind of potential hubs that can be developed kind of in between the Beaumont and the Redlands area. And so kind of some key takeaways kind of with it, the existing Mesa Verde specific plan, the Summer Wind specific plan that's in place. One is, just for kind of reference, is the Mesa Verde specific plan is currently being proposed to be amended. A lot of their commercial uses that they had in their existing plan has been transferred for considerably more industrial development right here. And so this is a couple million, I think 6 or 7 million square feet of industrial uses are proposed in Cal Mesa in lieu of the commercial, since they recognize that that commercial having a big hub there would not be able to compete with whatever happens outside of their city limits. And the Mesa Verde specific plan, as I mentioned, is changing. The area is not necessarily as viable. And then the Summer Wind site is been tied up through their permitting. They have some costly infrastructure and challenges. So the Freeway Corridor was meant to kind of avoid those features and make it more competitive than the Cal Mesa development, and then certainly provide an opportunity to take that development and the sales tax revenue to the city of Yucaipa. And then certainly if you kind of compare Summer Wind is accessible, or the Freeway Corridor, Oakland Road for Yucaipa, and I-10 for Cal Mesa can connect there. And then the location of the regional commercial is on the opposite side of where the industrial uses would be on the update, and so the traffic wouldn't necessarily be competing. Summer Wind, though, has access from Brant Street to Singleton, so our residents could drive down Brant Street through Singleton. And then however, the commercial land uses are surrounded by industrial, and the new homes have to pass through that truck traffic to get there. And so it does make it a little bit better for our residents and Cal Mesa residents in terms of that right-sized commercial approach to those hubs, but certainly we could go down Bryant Street for the development in Cal Mesa as well. And so just trying to give some context, and then certainly the housing context is important as well. For housing sites in the arena, we're able to reclaim credit because we've addressed some of the deficiencies that the existing plan has, or why it would be deemed infeasible under the state. And then certainly kind of modifying the market demand for the kind of that mid density level. Right now we don't have a 12 unit per acre site, so it's either low income, kind of lower middle income, or lower kind of middle density, and then high density. There's nothing kind of in between, so there's no Goldilocks type of spot. And so the number of units itself remains, within a percentage of what the existing plan already has, but really just kind of tailors the market demographics for that to that middle range. And so again, kind of note for your action tonight is to consider the update to the Freeway Corridor specific plan. It's not necessarily on the idea of the Freeway Corridor being developed. The Freeway Corridor specific plan that's in place already authorizes the development of 2,400 units and several million square feet of commercial industrial units. It's on the proposed changes. Again, this was direction from the City Council at the time for an evolution to the plan to certainly maintain the competitiveness for our housing elements into future cycles, provide a greater distinction between the regional, commercial, and business part where warehouses would not be permitted on the prime retail areas with the freeway views, reducing some of the traffic impacts for existing residents at build out, and then certainly updating the infrastructure kind of requirements to reduce the cost for both the city in the long term, but also impacts to adjoining properties in order to make those improvements. Certainly City Council can consider the existing specific plan remaining as is, the updates that are proposed, or any direction to do a more comprehensive update to the overall goals and intent of the Freeway Corridor specific plan. And happy to take any direction and questions that the City Council may have.
All right, thank you, Ben. We certainly have a list of action that needs to be handled tonight, so we'll move through that. Before we do, the last time this item appeared before us, it was abruptly continued at the beginning of the meeting without a lot of explanation. And I voted no on the continuance because I felt that we should give everyone who had taken the time to attend the meeting a chance to be heard. And I'd like to thank all of you for coming out tonight so we can hear you weigh on this important topic. We do have a public hearing on this item tonight, and it is our job to listen to everyone who speaks and ultimately make a decision based on all of the information presented. But I have to say that as of right now, I have a lot of concerns and do not think this plan is the right course of action for our community. Frankly, this plan was the brainchild of the prior city manager, and it was pushed through, unbeknownst to the council at the time, the EIR process without adequate buy-in from the people who actually own the land in question. This is a community that values the private property rights, and rightfully so. So why were the property owners not as involved in creating this plan? And why was the previous city manager trying to shove this down their throats and our throats? Yucaipa is not Fontana or Rialto or Ontario, and it's certainly not Redlands, and those are all fine communities. But we want to be something different in our community. We need development, we need economic growth, we desperately need the revenue that comes with good commercial projects. But here in Yucaipa, we absolutely must balance those needs with a strong desire to hold a more rural look and feel. We value open spaces, mountain views, outdoor recreation opportunities. I used to hunt in the current wine country specific plan. I know it was illegal. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I think the statute of limitations has expired for unlawfully discharging a firearm in city limits. The good news is that we don't have to choose between economic growth and maintaining our rural feel. But in order to achieve both, we have to be extraordinarily cautious and deliberate in our planning, which is where you come in as our planner. And so for me, this plan misses the mark. Now, I've read this EIR and I'm comfortable with it. PlaceWorks has done a great job, and our city spent millions of dollars, or $1 million. It is a solid document that, in my opinion, adequately addresses the potential impacts. I think we need to certify it, but pending hearing all the testimony tonight, I have a hard time seeing how I could support this Freeway Corridor specific plan update in its current form. We likely need to send it back to the drawing board. I don't like the Freeway Corridor specific plan as it's currently written, not this update, but as it's currently written, because what it's currently written as is, it was approved in 2008 to put warehouses where the red is at. That's already been approved. The no vote tonight doesn't make warehouses go away. That was approved by four councilmen, 1 woman and 3 gentlemen who sat on this council. The vote tonight, the update is to try to mitigate some of those, hide them. If we have to have it, maybe put it somewhere so we don't see it. But with that being said, I still think we missed the mark. I'd like to see this plan come back to council worked out better. Maybe having more community meeting town halls, because I don't think a lot of people in our community know that warehouses have already been approved, and they've all been approved for almost 17 years to go in the red. That's why the Robinson Ranch estate says they're upset that there's not more opportunity for warehouses in this update, because they want to put warehouses there because that's what was approved back in 2008. 2,400 homes in that area. Our arena numbers alone. Ben, what does our current housing element require us to build? What is it?
2866.
2,866 homes, right?
Yeah.
And our city of Yucaipa population cap at build out is 80,000, I think. We're at 50,000 and change, 55,000.
Yep.
That's another 25,000 residents that are gonna call this valley home when we build out. And those are numbers we're on the hook for because we've said so for the last 30 years, that at build out, our Yucaipa Valley will have 80,000 people calling it home. People don't know that. We've said it. We need to say it louder. We need to have more town halls so people know that the state, His Royal Majesty Newsom, has locked us into adding an extra 25,000 residents to our beautiful Green Valley. So now we have the opportunity to mitigate that best we can. Okay, fine. How do we do that? We have to have warehouses because somebody voted so in 2008. All right. How do we hide them? How do I make it so I don't see them? How do I make it so that the hills where the deer and the antelope graze, right? Where our cows sit there and graze, and people drive through and say Yucaipa is that place where a pumpkin patch and some cows on the hill. How do we make that stay what we know of Yucaipa? And I think there's a way. I think you're substantially closer in this plan than we were in 2008, but I don't think we're at bullseye just yet. I'm gonna have a hard time. With that being said, I have a stack of public speaker slips of people who might try to change their mind. And it's my job, and the 4 gentlemen that sit next to me's job, to be impartial and listen to all the testimony given so that we can hear and make an informed decision. But I'm not a robot. I'm a citizen of this community. I live here as well, and I have an opinion, just like everybody else here does.
Mayor,
Anybody
I'd like to say something when you're done.
Sir, go ahead.
I know a lot of people were confused and upset when this item was continued last month. Well, I did not make or second the motion. I did vote for it, and I'd like to address that. I am not comfortable voting for this plan. I don't think it's the best plan for Yucaipa. I don't think it's ready for consideration by the council. Clearly, many of our residents and living in our neighborhood communities are concerned about this plan. Several of the major landowners involved, they're not crazy about this plan, including the largest landowner in the plan area. And after all, it's their private property we're talking about here. After many discussions and concessions, some of these landowners have agreed to accept the plan, but very few, maybe two, seem to think it's fully in their interest. The draft of this plan was approved and moved forward to the EIR process in '22, but the previous city council, previous city manager, why a city would move such a plan forward, committing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on an ERI without first making sure the major property owners impacted are okay with the plan, is a mystery to me. Furthermore, it's clear to me that insufficient public input was gathered in '22 prior to sending this plan off to be studied through the EIR process. It pains me to say this because it will cost the city more money and will delay badly needed revenue generation, economic development. But in my mind, we need to go back to the drawing board on this plan. I'd like for us to certify the EIR. I've read it, and I think it's addresses the potential impacts. However, I'd like for the council to direct staff to go back and rework the specific plan update. I'd like for the property owner who owns 10 acres or more in this plan area to be included in the discussion. To the greatest extent possible, I'd like all those landowners to be on board with the revised plan before it comes back to us. In addition, I'd like for there to be a town hall meeting to gather community input before the plan comes back to us. I'd like for us to revise the plan to be posted on the city website for at least 30 days prior to that town hall meeting, so the public has sufficient time to review it. As this is a public hearing, we have a legal obligation to listen and consider all comments and information presented. I intend to do so. However, as it stands now, I don't see how I can support this. That's it.
Any other comments for staff?
Well, I had a bunch of comments, but I don't now because you guys cleared that up. So no, I'm good. Thank you.
Councilman Thorpe, anything? Mayor Pro Tem Venable, anything? We'll move on to public comments. Ladies and gentlemen, I have well over an hour worth of public comments from you all. Please be mindful of your comments. If you agree with something somebody's already said, maybe just come up, let your comment be heard. If we can be respectful of his time, that way we don't have to possibly limit time. I know in the county, I think they limit time sometimes at 2 minutes, but I want everybody to be heard. If you have something to say, oh, I'm sorry, I'll get the applicant first. You're right. I'm still going to say what I'm saying about public comment. When the time comes for public comment, please be respectful of your comments, respectful of the time, so we can all get through what needs to be said and we can hear what you have to say. But if what you were going to say somebody's also already said, perhaps consider saying, I agree with what's already been said. With that being said, we'll call up the applicant and representative for their presentation first. This is, so right now we're gonna call up the applicant for the project, and then after that, we're gonna do public comment about this public hearing, about the Freeway Corridor specific plan and this project for the warehouses. Pacific Oaks.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Councilmen. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. And I want to first state that I acknowledge the comments that you just made about the appropriateness of presenting our project at a town hall. I'm certainly prepared to do our presentation tonight to show you how I think we do have a warehouse that balances the needs of the city, the warehouse that can be hidden from the freeway, that would bring a lot of needed infrastructure and revenue to the city. But I'm also open to yielding that time with the understanding that if it's your preference, we do this in a town hall meeting and not take up our presentation tonight, knowing we're going to do it again. I'm happy to yield that time and maybe just have a reserve rebuttal at the end if it's needed.
So your rights under due process are paramount to this board. You have the absolute right to be heard. Let me defer to my city attorney real quick to see how that progresses.
The applicant under our rules of procedure already has the right to do a rebuttal, so if you'd like to wait until after hearing public comment and council discussion, that would be appropriate.
Okay. If you'd like to do that, we'll go right to public comment. You can hear what's being said. We can move forward and either address those in rebuttal, and should we find ourselves in a position where this council directs staff to maybe maybe continue this item and table this item for further work and a town hall, we can cross that bridge as well. I think having this ability to have open dialogue between all parties is critical for our community. So I appreciate your willingness to defer at the moment and wait for public comment and have maybe your rebuttal after that.
Okay.
Thank you,
We'll
ma'am.
do that. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to public comment for this public hearing item. So this is public comment specifically for item number 21, Freeway Corridor Specific Plan and Pacific Oaks Commerce Center. Again, please be mindful of time if you're able to, and we'll get right into it. First speaker is Ms. Amy Oohs. Following speaker is Mr. Edward Timmons. How do you pronounce your last name? It's Oaks. Oaks. Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Oaks.
It's a German name. It's
Gotcha. Okay.
Kind of weird. Okay. Okay. My name is Amy Oaks, and I have been a proud resident of Yucaipa for over 30 years. I grew up here, raised my family here, made many friendships, and care deeply about our town and its future. I've taken the time to gain some understanding of the proposed the plan update and the Pacific Oaks project because I care about our town and I want to see it grow in a way that benefits us all. From what I've learned, both proposals have the potential to bring positive changes to our community. This plan makes thoughtful adjustments to the zoning for the area. It allows for more shopping options, better affordable housing, and businesses that create jobs, which having kids in their 20s, that's really important for me. I have 3 married kids who can't afford to buy a house, and it's nice to think that maybe sometime in the future there would be affordable housing for them. Okay. It plans for another freeway interchange in the future, which will help with traffic, not only from the warehouses, but everyday traffic as well. And importantly, it reduces the amount of anticipated traffic by half from what is currently allowed. That's a big improvement for all of us who value Yucaipa. And I know that the traffic is a concern for a lot of people, but I kind of was looking at comparing it to Redlands warehouses, which I know Redlands is not Yucaipa, but there's about 1,600 acres of industrial warehouse buildings there. And the trucks use 4 interchanges to get to them. So that divides it to around 375 acres per interchange. For the Pacific Oaks project, which is a lot smaller, it's only 135 acres to 1 interchange, which is much less than the 375 in Redlands. So there would be fewer trucks, and I know that everybody's so concerned about the traffic and stuff, but just reviewing it, I really see that they've planned it out well and have planned for traffic and have looked at the concerns of the public, even though everybody's against the warehouses. It's that they've really figured out the traffic compared to what was approved before. It's a big change. So I'm just as concerned about and love this town as much as anyone else.
Thank you
and
for your
I'm-
time, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Edward Timmons, followed by Mr. Ronnie Gustafson.
Edward Timmons from District 3, and I oppose building warehouses in Yucaipa. Mr. Duncan, I'm expecting your representation since I'm in District 3, and Mr. Matlock, glad to see other real estate professionals agree that not every project is feasible and we haven't all lost our minds. As of 2023, the Inland Empire has over 1.5 billion square feet of warehouse space. In the last month, there's over 20 million square feet of vacant warehouses, with those warehouses being larger than 250,000 square feet, all available within a 30-mile radius of Yucaipa, including the Yucaipa Logistics Center. The region does not need an additional 2 million square feet of vacant warehouses. The promises of high-paying jobs and economic growth from warehouses are more illusion than reality for Yucaipa. Unlike Moreno Valley and Fontana, Yucaipa lacks the necessary infrastructure to fully benefit from such plans. Promoting warehouse job creation offers limited benefits to the local community. Warehouses typically provide about half the jobs compared to retail or mixed-use business parks per acre. Warehouse jobs are often low-paying and transient. From my experience as an operations manager at Amazon's PSP1 Robotic FC in Beaumont, most warehouse workers commute long distances and turnover is higher than in the fast food industry. Warehouses have a poor ratio of skilled to low-skilled labor, roughly 1 in 80, while mixed-use and retail developments offer up to 5 times more skilled jobs. In 2022, the California Budget Project estimated the average Inland Empire worker needed $17.48 per hour to cover basic family needs. Adjusted for inflation is now $19.56 an hour, with the average California warehouse worker making $17.32 an hour. Therefore, supporting warehouses means supporting jobs that fail to provide a living wage for workers. Warehouses generate low per acre tax revenues, as I'm sure you know, and lack sales tax contributions, which I'm sure you know, offering minimal benefit to local government finances and failing to offset related costs. Development impact fees may cover the initial infrastructure expenses, but ongoing costs will fall to residents long after development is completed and the cow has been cashed. The solution is straightforward. Update the FCSP to remove mega warehouses, right? We understand we need houses, we understand we need business parks, but no mega warehouses. I, along with many other Yucaipa residents, urge you to move beyond quick fixes and instead pursue innovative solutions to address our economic and urban development challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ronnie Gustafson. Followed by Mr. Victor Espinosa.
My name's Ronnie Gustafson. I've been in Yucaipa my whole life. I'm opposed to the warehouses. We don't have the infrastructure. Our canyon's not wide enough. You're not going to get a 10-wheeler with a 53-foot trailer through that canyon without crossing the double yellow lines. And when they cross the lines, you're going to be putting everybody in danger with accidents out there. It's not going to happen. You know what I mean? You're just asking for people to die. And then when there's a wreck out there, where are you going to turn these trucks around? You're going to lose power poles with these trucks going through the canyon. It's going to shut us down. And then how are our first responders going to get out there when the canyon's closed down with these semis? It's not going to happen. Think about it. There's not enough room at the railroad track down there for a truck to be at the stop sign and off the track. The railroad's not going to move their train tracks. You know what I mean? I mean, if you're going to do it, Yucaipa's going to do what they're going to do. Then build your interchange and build a road that takes you out and ties you into Redlands Boulevard out there and takes you to the 60 freeway, but leave the canyon alone. You know what I mean? You can't even get a pickup truck with a dump trailer through there without crossing the double yellow line. And you're going to turn it into another Gilman Springs where people are going to die every week because they're trying to pass each other behind these trucks and stuff. And I mean, it's going to be a death highway out there, and it's not fair to the residents. So, I mean, think of some people's lives instead of the money. I mean, it's because you're going to be putting those in jeopardy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Victor Espinosa, followed by Mr. Roe Randolph.
Good evening. My name's Victor Espinosa. I moved to Yucaipa in 1979, and I live on 11th Street off of Colorado. It's my understanding the environmental impact report that's current in this project from 2008 Since then, the plan has changed. The EIR hasn't, one that has been certified, okay? Question is, why is there no new and all-inclusive EIR that's been certified at this point? Because we're talking about just words if it's not certified. And the project added 4 million square feet of warehouse. With that comes all the support vehicles, trucks, forklifts, et cetera. Under the 2008 EIR, we will be adding 2,500 metric tons of CO2 in the environment every day per that EIR. This will contribute to cardiovascular disease, respiratory disease, and heat waves. God forbid you already have asthma or any kind of heart issues. You're going to have to deal with that. And we're already bad now without any building. We're beyond what we should be. And now we're just going to, don't tell me it's going to be less than what it is now. Okay, we're beyond what the state even says is right. Going on from there, something a lot of people don't know, that this will kill people, not to overstate it, but it will. Also for our schools, the California Interscholastic Federation, which is the CIF, made new rules this year regarding the air quality index and heat. It means that if the air quality index goes too high and the heat goes too high, our athletes and students cannot practice or play any games. Okay, so now, but yet they're scheduled to play football against Eisenhower. So all week long, they don't get to practice, but guess what? They got to play Friday night, Newport Beach or somewhere out there, but they didn't get to practice because of the new CIF rules for heat and smog index. And then where are you going to put the kids? When the index goes up because of all this new smog that's coming out, where are you going to put the kids? During PE time, there's no room. The high school, the elementary schools, what are you going to do with them? Can't put them outside because the index says you can't. The state says you can't. So the cost is going to go up somewhere else. It's not like what people think. And they think it doesn't involve them. Well, think about their kids that play sports. Think about their kids that are in school that now don't get to do anything.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Mr. Roe Randolph.
Thank you.
I apologize, ma'am. I
Roe
wasn't aware.
Randolph, Colorado Street. We have a binder of all of the environmental impact reports, the South Coast Air Quality Management, and the California Air Resource Board. I mean, all of this is all the bad of your environmental impact report. It does not look good for us. And like Vic was saying, he pretty much covered it. Yucaipa is 10 miles long, 15 miles wide. I've been here my whole life. My family settled here in the 40s. And you know what? We already are a corridor. I mean, you guys had a map of the mountains of San Mateo Canyon and the mountains that we live in. It is a corridor. We already have the most polluted city in California. We are 80%. You're going to add another 30% onto that. That is another 2,000 tons of emissions a year. We're going to die. That's it. We shouldn't even be talking about this. And you know what? I was involved in that in 08. I came here in 08, and I was telling them no then about that. So we can reverse that vote where you're like, well, you know, they already voted it in 08. We can reverse that. Why? Because we're Yucaipa. We can make change. You guys are there. We don't have to do this. We shouldn't even be having this conversation because we're going to die. We're going to smother to death. We are a corridor that is so polluted. And these trucks that come in, because I'm a truck driver, even with the DAF that we have to put on our trucks, it's not sufficient enough. You know, we're gonna smother to death. And that's gonna be the biggest regret Yucaipa will ever have, is to build the warehouses, the houses, because even these houses, nobody's gonna be able to afford that. Just the infrastructure to grade all of that down, we're gonna die from the construction alone. I'm not willing to die. In Yucaipa, we need to breathe. We can't breathe. And that is going to be red flag days. Vic said it. Kids are not going to be able to do sports. Our people are going to die of cancer. 70% of cancer comes from what? The big trucks, the soot. Emergency visits. We're in trouble, you guys. We are so in trouble. And oh, wait, we stood up here. Colorado Street people said, no, 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 no. And they voted it anyway. And we fought that. She was here. We fought it. And they did it anyway. We can reverse that. We voted in. We can pull that right back off the plate. We have control. Why? Because this is our taxpayer money. This is our home. And these are the facts. The numbers show we're going to die. That's it. Our old people are going to smother. Our kids are going to suffer cancer, COPD. We're going to have red flag days. Remember the 70s when your nose bled from the smog? You remember that? That's what's going to happen again. But we have control to reverse this. We don't have to do any of that. We can do a grant and buy the Palmers and their land.
Thank you,
and
ma'am.
make it a conservatory.
Thank you.
We can do that.
Next speaker, I'm having a hard time reading. I think might be Linda Willem or Lucia Willem. Followed by Mr. Craig Heaps. Can you clarify your name for the record, ma'am?
Witham.
And your first name?
Linda.
Thank you.
Okay, I live in District 1. Okay, I moved to California in about 1970 from Oregon, and I moved into the Anaheim area. And then I later moved to San Clemente. Both areas were beautiful. Now, not only are they unrecognizable, they're unlivable. I see this cancer creeping into Yucaipa. When Doug and I married 30 years ago, we bought our first home here. We're still there. We love our neighborhood, and we love Yucaipa. When we retired, we volunteered with many entities within the city with the attitude that if we live here, we should contribute. We made many friends and loved being part of things. Then about a year and a half ago, disaster struck. Our beautiful city was ripped heartlessly apart by a vision that benefited only the developers. We suddenly had a city council that pitted itself against the citizens it was supposed to serve, and a city manager that had no empathy or care for the needs of the city. We fought, and we will continue to fight. We want our city back. I am absolutely against warehouses coming to the city of Yucaipa. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Heaps, followed by James Kamazi.
Mayor, council members, good evening. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. Craig Heaps, West Coast Entitlement. I do represent the Robinson family, Ken and Sandy Robinson. I think Sandy's here this evening. The Robinson Family Trust, Robinson Family Ranch, they do own 546 of the 1,242 acres in the Freeway Corridor specific plan. So I find it very important. From your very first meeting, Mayor, you talked about land rights and changing people's value of their lands by making the changes for them. And I think that's what's happened here. I do think you're right, there's more time needed to figure this out exactly and make this happen. The Robinsons do support most of the shareholders in the Freeway Corridor specific plan, from the Pumpkin Patch to the Abraham Issa to even Pacific Oaks. I mean, we have no problem with any of it. We just want to make it right and make it happen correctly. One concern that I have as you move forward and vote through this, and maybe you can ask this question of PlaceWorks. I understand the need to want to certify the EIR, but I also worry that if you certify the EIR, that you lock in the zoning that the EIR was written off of. So suddenly people are going to have zoning that doesn't make any sense to them. And I think you should clarify that before you vote on it. And one thought that I might have for the city is that I'm sure the shareholders, to get it right and to make sure the city gets it right, will participate in a cost-sharing venture to help out with the changes to the Freeway Corridor specific plan, to the EIR, to adjustments to the EIR. So I think that's something to look at, very important. I think taking another 5 or 6 months really to look at this, to make a decision, and I know you'll have the same crowd back out to talk about this, to talk about it, whatever changes are made. So I would like you to really consider that before you vote for the EIR and certify it, that you don't want to lock in the zoning and marry these landowners to zoning that they don't want. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir James Kamazi, followed by Dr. Hanson Wong.
Yes, I'm James Kamazi, and thank you, council, for letting me just mention it. I'm a cardiologist, and I just like to add a little bit of technical stuff to what we just heard. First of all, the diesel, what these trucks are going to be producing, includes fine particulates. That's the same thing that the firemen are having to breathe. And I'll just tell you, as a cardiologist, if any fireman comes in with a heart problem, it's assumed to be a workman's comp caused by the fire. The point being is that the fine particulates cause cancer, and they cause lung disease, and they're well known, and the state is doing whatever it can to try to change the diesel. But we don't need to bring and concentrate it in a small area that you have here. So please don't do that. Secondly, I had the luxury of driving to Paris, Lake Paris, Friday night. Two things. I had somebody pass me on San Timoteo Canyon Road, double yellow line, pass me. It's crazy. But worse yet, even on the Redlands Boulevard going into the 60 I had people passing me on that, and that is curvy. And double yellow lines. So we are essentially killing ourselves, predictably, by increasing the traffic on that, especially with large vehicles. They will cause the anger of irrational people to make them pass. I've seen it happen. I've seen the deaths.
Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Wong, followed by Mrs. Colleen Wong.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak once in a while. First of all, I think that the city planners need to consider the fact that these are three major issues here. The issue of the plan itself, the issue of the land use, and the issue of the warehouses. To group them together, that gives me the perception that you're throwing a few pork barrels in the major thing, and then you're just voting on it. And I think if you're going to redo this, you should reconsider having the ability to discuss each of those individual items separately. Otherwise, I like to talk. I'd rather have 9 minutes than 3, so I think it should be 3 separate issues. Secondly, I think that we didn't get the major stakeholders in this in a timely fashion. It was already mentioned. But the landowners, the local residents, the neighboring cities, as well as the people that will give us advice on the type of land usage and also the things like the corridor for wildlife and so on. All of this has to be done in consideration. I think we should get all the stakeholders together. No plan is perfect. You have to do the best that you can, but you have to have the input that you don't have at this time. I have a pet peeve about defining things, defining 1 per acre as to have 1,000 homes for 1,000 acres, whether it's buildable or not. I oppose the open space definition of including agriculture, grazing, and land that you just grate in the wrong way. So I think that the timeline is important. I think that you should not vote yes on the SCIR because there is several faults with it. I think timing should be included because, yes, if you have the interchange, if you have the roads built, if you have the outer freeway built and so on, then I think you can talk about some of this stuff. But none of this is in the timeline. It's not in the plan. So then it becomes a problem in my mind. The GESJA, they're known for the things they do. But on the other hand, reading through that, some of the points that they had were valid. I'd like to know whether the city found a way to mitigate it, or how did they get them off your backs and had them withdraw their letter? It would be important to me to understand how you took care of it. I'm really concerned about significant and unavoidable.
Thank you
I
for
think
your- thank you
that's
for
the
your comments,
wrong
Doctor.
way to approach things. Thank you.
Mrs. Colleen Wong. Followed by Mr. David Duran.
Before I start, there's two people here that have Martha's son's picture. Could you hold that up? This is from Martha Glebka. She, a month ago, gave you a statement about her son that died of leukemia from toxic materials in the air. I'm Colleen Wong from Yucaipa. We have a lot of arguments that are being given, that are being presented, and then as reason for why we should have these warehouses, and then that we're being told that he freely admits that the air quality measures are unmitigatable, and then he asks us to go ahead and approve it anyway. He says that it's going to make everything worse. People will die, but that's unavoidable, and we should do it anyway. How is that justifiable? I remember the 70s, and I remember when I couldn't take a deep breath. Yucaipa, we are in the 80th percentile in bad air. It's affecting our marginalized communities, communities that we can't claim to care about. Our planner and city manager says we should approve it anyway. The property managers, I understand why they want it approved, because they want to optimize any profit they can from their property. Perhaps deals were made, boundaries overstepped with a culture of emboldened license at City Hall. It is completely understandable on the part of private property owners. They need and want the money they make from their property. However, City Council has a duty to look at the bigger picture. It's what they're elected to do. It's what they're entrusted to do. Our city manager says we need the money now, this year, because our budget has been badly mismanaged. City Council members, no one needs the money that badly, nor should we get everything we want just when it hurts people. I am a nurse. It is my calling. Have you ever seen someone die of cancer? Maybe it won't be someone you care about or someone's staff cares about. However, it's not just about cancer deaths. Think about all the people who live painful, shut-in lives with things like chronic obstructive lung disease, hobbling from room to room trying to catch their breath. They stop to hold on to the wall during coughing fits. Their legs are swollen and moving is difficult. They are frequently out of money, so they must decide between turning on the lights or the fan, and they often end up with only the TV for light. These are just a few of the kinds of lives our planner and manager says you don't want to think about when they suggest you vote yes on this project. However, Councilman,
Thank you for your
vote
comments.
with your conscience this time, vote
Thank you
no.
Thank you for your comments. I believe Mrs. Sutt's speaking for David Duran, followed by Mr. John Flick, and then James Dodaro.
Obviously, I'm not David Duran. However, he's having a throat challenge, and he asked me to read his comment. So this is from David, not from me, regarding the warehouse proposal. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before the council. My name is David Duran, and I live at 36064 Panorama Drive in Yucaipa. Regarding your vote on the possibility of warehouses being built in Yucaipa, I would like to offer sound reasons as to why the mega warehouses should not be part of Yucaipa's landscape. Yucaipa is unique among Inland Empire cities on the I-10 corridor. Unlike the flatlands of Ontario and Fontana and Redlands that border the I-10, Yucaipa's stretch of the freeway is an area of rolling hills and canyons, of verdant winter and spring growth, of creeks that flow in seasonal opportunity. When we're on the road approaching Yucaipa and we see the rolling hills and the canyons, our incomparable landscape, we know we have come home to Yucaipa. our Yucaipa. The construction of millions of square feet of sharp-edged, high, imposing gray structures will scrape away and pave over this unique landscape and habitat, and the warehouses will forever violate the land around them. I urge you to disallow the warehouses so that the rolling hills and canyons will be preserved for us to admire and to brag on as our own unique landscape. Thank you for your consideration of my request before you vote. Sincerely, David Duran.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. John Flick, followed by Mr. James Dodaro.
When I was a boy, I lived on the crest of the canyon we called the Oaks.
Can you share your address for the record, please, sir?
Excuse me?
Can you share your address for the record, please?
My address?
Yes, sir. What district?
I'm in 418 Sherwood Redlands, but I grew up next to the Oaks as I was.
Thank you. That's
Is that
good.
okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry, this is the first time I've ever done this.
It's completely fine.
Anyway, I'll go back. When I was a boy, I lived on the crest of the canyon we called the Oaks. My pal Mike and I would strap on canteens of Kool-Aid, Goofy Grape, and explore our childhood playground. Paladin, Paladin, where do you roam? Paladin, Paladin, far, far from home. Mike passed at an early age, and I returned to the canyon to say a prayer for him and my book, The Bogus Buzz, that I had written of coming of age in that canyon. I knelt at the foot of the oak that we carved our names on as kids. And as soon as the prayer left my lips, I heard a cry. And a red-tailed hawk hovered over me, craned its neck to peer at me, and then it was gone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dodaro, followed by Gil Turnquist.
James Dodaro, 3500 Byron in Beaumont. So I know I'm not a part of the city anymore, but I did have property in the city for some time. I am here to support the project. I believe that the city needs the income, the revenue to sustain itself over the future. Industrialization is something that happens. You're going to need to embrace this. It is something that, although you might think that it's not important, those minor jobs are stepping stones. My first job was in a warehouse, Kmart distribution center in Ontario, California. That job was not a permanent job. It was a stepping stone. So when we hear people say, no, there's no reason to have jobs like this, they only pay $17 an hour, they're not there to get you a life of luxury. They're a stepping stone for young youth, people that go to college. That's what I did. So I implore with you to spend a little more time thinking about the revenue of the city and also the opportunities that you're going to afford the younger people coming out of college or high school. But it's important to think about more than just the environment here. We've got a good spot for these to be placed. I live in Beaumont. I'm surrounded by 3 or 4 of them. Cherry Valley Boulevard, I have it across. They've mitigated most of the issues that people have brought up, like the diesel fumes and those types of things. As you said, Governor Newsom has done a lot of things for our smog control systems and those types of things. A lot of the vehicles nowadays are zero smog or no smog. Thanks to Elon Musk, we're going to have more Tesla trucks on the road. And now we have to worry a little bit more about how much electricity do we need to actually run those. So I would also like the mayor to actually elaborate a little bit more about what his concerns are specifically. You were very broad about what you described as, I'm concerned. Being concerned is not a description. So help us understand what you are very specific about instead of being very broad. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Folks, can you please be respectful? There was some murmuring and laughter. That wasn't done when anybody else was speaking. It's just not appropriate, okay? We're all quiet when you're speaking. You guys should be quiet when somebody else is speaking. They have the right to be heard. They have the right to speak, okay? It's their opinion. We all have our opinions. So Gil Turnquist, followed by Mr. Dave Matuzak.
Thank you so very much for this opportunity to speak and say a few things. I printed out some of the plan. It was about 150 pages, so I only got about 15 pages. But a couple things stood out. This is on section 310, the conceptual circulatory or circulation plan features. And then on the next page, the connection to the Interstate 10, Live Oak Canyon, so on and so forth. This is what I'd like to say. My wife said to me, she said, this will eventually pass. That's a given. And I understand that, okay? But hopefully, by listening or perhaps getting some input from the community, this will give us a chance, maybe a little bit of mediation, okay? And one of the things that would be really helpful in looking at this document here would be if some of this infrastructure was in place before the building actually went in place, like the roads, that would be so helpful, you know? And because like on the next page here, which is 311, it says that Live Oak Canyon Road is designated as a scenic highway. It'd be nice to keep it as close to that, if at all possible. So I know this is a difficult decision for you gentlemen, and we're part of the community, and we wanna do the right thing. I'm sure you do, and I just wanted to bring that out. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Matuzak, followed by Sandra, Then, maybe? I apologize. All right, Mr. Matuzak.
Mayor Beaver and council. My name is David Matuzak. Many of you know me as Coach Matuzak. I live in Live Oak Canyon. Prior to that, I came to Yucaipa in 1977 to teach at Yucaipa High School, where I taught and coached your kids, your grandkids, and some of you for 38 years. I've been very intricately involved in Yucaipa. I refer to Yucaipa as my home. It has been for nearly 4 decades. I designed your bike route system here in the city of Yucaipa when the city first incorporated. Had it passed off at the original city council room, which was on California Street back in those days. What I see you attempting to do or considering to do to Live Oak Canyon is a crime against nature, pure and simple. You know that this is an oasis of natural habitat, and to even consider for a moment the building of warehouses is simply not right. You should know that I am also the president of the Friends of Live Oak Canyon, our homeowners association in the canyon. That organization actually began some 40 years ago when the Palmer family was fighting against some development across the road from them. Now they are the Palmer Corporation. Now they want to build warehouses in Live Oak Canyon, the same place that they fought to keep natural 40 years ago. So don't make Live Oak Canyon look like Redlands and San Bernardino with all of the warehouses. You've heard all the reasons for the health and the natural habitat. You're going to hear from others as well. Do the right thing. Would everybody who is opposed to the warehouses please raise your hand and stand up right now? I want you to see what your neighbors and your constituents want. They do not want warehouses in Live Oak Canyon. Henry David Thoreau, the famous naturalist, said, "A man is rich in proportion to the number of things that he can leave alone." Leave Live Oak Canyon alone. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Sandra. And if you could just state your address for the record, followed by Ward Thompson.
My name is Sandra Thompson, and I live on Live Oak Canyon in Redlands. And my husband will be after me. Lives in the same place. Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate your sentiments and agree with many of the things that you've discussed before we started this. I don't have anything really planned. I'm just referring to what I've been hearing. And I want to mention the scenic byway that the other gentleman mentioned. I remember almost 40 years ago, there used to be signage that showed that Oakland Road and Live Oak Canyon Road were a scenic byway. Not sure where that signage went, but it is true. This canyon is a gem of the Inland Empire, and people come to the preserves. Santa Mateo Canyon is also a gem, and I don't know if you folks are aware that there's a state park trying to be established in Santa Mateo Canyon, and there's a wildlife preserve. Those are all very close to the areas where they want to put in a warehouse. The warehouses, I object to for multiple reasons. Everything has been discussed. Dave Matuzak said it very nicely, of the environmental concerns, the traffic, the smog, the diesel fumes, and the soot. But people aren't realizing that Live Oak Canyon is also a corridor for people that want to take the 60, to get off the 60, shortcut, and get into Live Oak Canyon. I have seen trucks do this. The trucks do this quite a bit. When there's a traffic jam on the freeway, when there's an accident on the freeway, they cut through. Even if Yucaipa decides they want to put in, widen the road there, put in a road that cuts through to this warehousing area, we will have trucks impacting. And another gentleman mentioned about trying to turn the trucks to make the turns. Trying to turn a truck to get onto the trailer tracks at San Tim and Live Oak Canyon is very dangerous now. Just yesterday or the day before yesterday, there was a car incident right there. And I've seen truck and trailer combos that have side-swiped the railroad guards. It's a very dangerous spot there. Going up the canyon is dangerous. I've been in a head-on collision not too far from where the bridge is, just above the bridge, where the Gateway Ranch Conservancy is. Cars and vehicles and trucks and trailers constantly cut the corners. Are you expecting us to all give up all of our land to widen that road and make it safe for the trucks? To take away the properties of all the people that live in Live Oak Canyon? Even though Yucaipa is only one section of it, it's affecting the people that live in Redlands and the people that commute back and forth from other jobs that take our road. It's very, very poor planning to try to put warehousing in a canyon hillside areas. I've seen the road that they've cut that's going to go to that area. It turns, and it's like this. We're going to have trucks do that? I mean, that's crazy.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ward Thompson, followed by Mr. Lloyd Rexdad.
I'll be really brief because my wife stole most of my thunder. I've lived in Live Oak Canyon since 1978. I have a business on Dunlap Boulevard for the last 30 years, and I've been practicing as a veterinarian for the last 40-some years in this area. We moved to Yucaipa, Redlands area, for a little slice of heaven, and I implore you not to turn it into a concrete hell like the rest of the Los Angeles area that we tried to escape from. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rexdad, thank you. I saw you. Next speaker, Mr. Keith Hale. Followed by Mrs. Kathy Sellers. Is Keith here? Keith? Yes, sir.
Sorry, I forgot my hearing aids.
Not at all.
Yeah. Hey, Bob. But I live on Columbia Avenue, 12992 Columbia Avenue, very close to the freeway. We bought an acre in 86, finally had the house finished and moved in the middle of 90. And we came up here at the time for the school system and the beauty and the quietness, because there were like 22,000 people back then. And it was wonderful. It was really wonderful. When I was younger, I could probably throw a baseball to the freeway, but we have a hill, which hopefully will not get cut down, you know, with some exception to the rules. But everybody else has said what's pretty much on my mind and a whole lot more. The only thing is I think about the constant noise from building. We're gonna hear that, you know, the constant noise from construction from these warehouses, all the infrastructure, the roads, the underground, and then we're talking housing, businesses, and so I'm 74, and I might have another 15 years or so. I'm not gonna live out all this noise, and a lot of other people like that too, but that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. About halfway there, about another hour to go. Mrs. Kathy Sellers, followed by Mr. Hector Rivera.
Kathy Sellers, District 1. As a member of Yucaipa Preservation Society, I object to the Freeway Corridor Specific Plan Update and the Pacific Oaks Commerce Center project and urge you to approve the motion against the update. Mayor Beaver, we are asking that you vote first after listening to the citizens. Don't wait for the predetermined majority of votes to come in and then take political cover by voting last. It's my understanding the red areas of the current plan are light industrial, not large warehouses. Are large warehouses and congested truck traffic at the gateway to Yucaipa consistent with Yucaipa's vision? The general plan for Yucaipa states that Yucaipa's natural environment distinguishes its exceptional quality of life. Does the specific plan update meet those goals? Granted, there are some elements of the plan that are desirable, but the warehouses are not one and do not contribute to the general plan goals for Yucaipa. No one begrudges the Palmer family for wanting to make the best deal they possibly can after owning this land for 70 years. You have that right. However, it must be said that we, your neighbors, supported your business for decades by bringing our children and grandchildren to the Christmas tree farm and pumpkin patch. We were loyal customers. It feels like a betrayal for you now to leave us all behind to deal with the decimation of our canyon. I can't imagine a scenario where families will say, let's go for a hike on the trails surrounding the warehouses today. Pack a picnic and we'll go to Smogland and dodge the semi-trucks. As a family dealing with the heartbreaking reality of a cancer diagnosis, the elevated levels of carcinogens that are significant and unavoidable are unacceptable. The Inland Empire is the warehouse capital of the United States. Over 45 million residents are exposed to the nation's worst smog in the form of ozone. Our county ranks #1 in exceedance of air quality standards. Warehouses are diesel death zones. Why would we want the children and senior citizens that inhabit those nearby homes exposed to that risk? The Irish tell the story of a man who arrives at the gates of heaven and asks to be let in. St. Peter says, of course, just show us your scars. The man says, I have no scars. St. Peter says, what a pity. Was there nothing worth fighting for? We are rightly called to find something in our lives worth fighting for. Our hearts are without fear and our heads are held high. Yucaipa is not for sale to the highest bidder. Together, we will save Yucaipa.
Thank you. Mr. Hector Rivera, followed by Marcus S.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members of Yucaipa. My name is Hector Rivera, and I'm a member of LIUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, Local 783, and a resident of Yucaipa. Our members depend on decisions like this one tonight so we can go to work. LIUNA members, some who are in this room tonight, depend on these jobs to support their families and to obtain the American dream. I have to drive 50 to 100 miles a day to work just to support my family. This project will give me an opportunity to work close to home so I can spend those afternoons that I'm driving with my family and in my community. And with this project, hopefully it can get the deficit of the $15 million deficit and this development with the developer will bring in much needed revenue and help build out the infrastructure. Thank you for tonight and let me speak. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Marcus S., followed by Mr. Jeffrey Scott, and then Walter Scott.
Thank you. Actually, this is my first time ever doing this, and last time I was here, your demeanor was a little like off, but I want to say thank you so much for saying what you did tonight and like actually like going back on a lot of that stuff. So thank you. Same with you, sir. So for me, I work in the healthcare field, and during my clinical rotations, I had to go through radiation therapy. So with families having to wait for their loved ones to get chemotherapy or some type of radiation that's going to affect the area. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the skin becomes charred, dry. They have to change their whole lifestyle. They have anywhere from 30 to 40 times that they have to do that within their plan. So most of them sometimes don't even make it. So you see them once a day, every day until they stop coming. So I do really believe that having all these carcinogenics is going to make so much more of that happen. And so people like me in the healthcare field have to see that every day. And we have to keep a smile on our face and try to show them some type of hope or happiness, knowing that they may not make it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jeffrey and Walter, or I'm sorry, Mr. Jeffrey Scott, then Mr. Walter Scott.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I live at, or used to live at 11999 Vista Way. I have since moved out. My dad, who's speaking right behind me, still resides there. So talking today about some of the project, positive as a project like this. So I myself am a product of an apprenticeship program. I went through, grew up in the system up here and took the school system, and college wasn't for me. I needed another alternative, somewhere to get my energy out, something I could do and make a decent livable wage. So one of the things that I want to commend is a developer who has come in and has tried to do things the right way. They have tried to make sure they're working with proper staff, going through the different steps and motions to make sure that they have a beautiful project, addressing the concerns of the citizens, but also making sure that they're opening up opportunities. One of those opportunities that we work with is outreach and development for the Western States Regional Council of Carpenters. So what we do is we go into high schools, we work with CTE programs, trade programs, the shop classes, and say, hey, if college isn't for you, what is an opportunity out there? And in this area, in the Inland Empire specifically, it's very discouraging for kids that don't see themselves going to a traditional 2 or 4 year education. There's the opportunities for them to make a living wage in this community are dwindling year by year by year. What I'm proposing and hoping that you encourage is that the project itself is a beautiful project. They've addressed some concerns. They've seen what the community feedback is, but they're opening up opportunities for the youth. So we actually work with Yucaipa High School and the ROP up system up here to get some of these students directly into apprenticeship programs where they can make livable, sustaining wages right away. I was actually able to move out of my dad's house. I'm sure he's gonna have a big smile on that face because I was able to make a living wage at a young age. I started at 18 years old, got in and moved out fairly quickly. And that should be our goal as a society. And that's growth. That's part of what it happens. And I understand that I grew up right in the hills. I understand that I probably got some citations from our first responders over there back in the day. But I love this area. I truly do. But I think this is a project that where it's at, I know there's a lot of pushback. I do think it makes sense. I think they've addressed plenty of concerns. But I think that the opportunities that this can open up is much needed for the youth in this area. I think that's one of the demographics that's lacking here is a lot of youth participation. They just don't know what's out there. And I understand that it's a big decision that you gentlemen have to make. I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's a lot to get up there and a lot of different sides. So thank you for taking the time, making sure that everybody is heard and the respect is given to everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Mr. Walter Scott, followed by Mr. Tim Slade. Sir.
Good evening, and thank you for letting me speak. So that is my son. That is a product of the school system. So I am a retired carpenter with 40 plus years in the trade. I've built everything that you can think of, including warehouses. So I'm probably part of the people that you don't like. But what I will tell you is, as a CTE teacher, people like my godson back there that lives here with us needs a place to go. Right now, he's having to drive to Palm Desert to go to work. I had most of my career I spent driving from Yucaipa to LA for a job. I missed the Little League games. I missed the dance recitals with my daughter. So I know it's not a popular thing because of what it is, but it also provides jobs for the younger generation. This is what nobody wants to talk about because you don't see these kids here. Because, right, he's taking time out of his job at McDonald's to be here tonight to support me. And that means a lot. It may not mean a lot to these people that don't like the project, but he needs a job that's not gonna be a dead end. McDonald's is a dead end. Construction isn't. I've done it for 40 years. My son followed right behind me. I follow my father with over 50 years. My godson deserves a chance to work here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tim Slade, followed by Mr. Tyler Ramison.
All right, I'm Tim Slade, 13509 Country Glen Court. Grew up, once again, here, all the way from Wildwood, Calamasa, 9th grade campus, high school. Now, I'm gonna be a little different than the rest of the Union Cats, you know, because I agree with a lot of the residents, and I also really like how you guys started it with seeping out and hearing from everybody, but also calling out the stuff that you guys don't like. I also don't like a lot of that stuff. I do appreciate with all the jobs and people discussing, especially when it comes down to that Oak Glen spot, changing the way that freeway is, because that pumpkin patch, it causes a lot of traffic. You can go try to get off there right now. But no matter what, things are gonna change, and I think doing it smart is the way it's gonna go no matter what. And I know that everybody here knows that. I know there's different sides. You could talk about the environment, you could talk about its, you know, economics, but there's somewhere in the middle that works. And it won't work for everyone, but it'll at least be the most sensible thing. And that's what, you know, at least I ask from you guys. You know, as a resident here, yeah, I don't like looking at warehouses either. And yes, you know, I didn't like this whole place being built when I was a kid. And then today I'm on their golf course. So, you know, it sucks getting older and seeing things change, but, you know, like he said too, the younger generation, and I'm not even old, but I care about Yucaipa. I love this place, and I just appreciate that you're hearing from both sides, and, you know, that I just see big trucks with the American flag. So, thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tyler Ramison, followed by Mr. Abraham Issa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilman. Before I start, I'm 32335 Live Oak Canyon Road, otherwise known as the Pumpkin Patch. And I first want to thank the city staff. They inherited this plan and have worked very hard to mold it to everybody's liking. It's been a ton of work, and, you know, Chris Mann, Fermin, Ryan, Ben, just really hardworking guys. So I wanted to get that out of the way. But to me, in my mind, what this is about is not about whether we want warehouses or not have warehouses. Like, the plan right now calls for warehouses. And where does it call for a warehouse? It calls for a warehouse right on my pumpkin patch. And how do I know that? Because every 2 months I get a call from a developer say, hey, let's ditch the pumpkin patch, we'll put a big warehouse there, call it a day. And I don't want to do that. I think warehouses don't belong on the freeway. I think that right now the warehouse would be on our spot, it would be across the way, and that's not where it should be. And I think we have a real opportunity here. We have a developer who's really willing to move a lot of dirt, go through a tremendous expense to hide these warehouses back behind the hills. I mean, the only thing that could be better is he finds a way to put them underground or make them invisible, literally. So I think it's an opportunity here that we really need to consider, because the warehouses don't belong on the freeway. We don't want it like Calamasa. But we do need the infrastructure. We do need the potential tax dollars. You know, probably Calamasa will have a party if we decide not to have these, because they're gonna build them right there next to the ones that they already have. And all the trucks are gonna be coming right down our freeway. All the pollution's gonna be blowing from Calamasa. And so I think we need to be thoughtful about it. I don't want warehouses on the pumpkin patch, and we have an opportunity here. We have a developer who is very thoughtful, very creative, and I think we have a plan here that could be the best of both worlds. So I hope you'll thoughtfully consider it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Abraham Issa, followed by Ms. Joanne Lassard.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Abraham Issa. I'm an owner of 32017 Live Oak Canyon Road. I was so taken by Tyler's comments, I forgot that I was next. So I appreciate your patience while I walk down here. First I want to acknowledge you guys for being, both the commission, planning commission, as well as the current council members, for passionately fighting for the rights of the landowners. I've seen you fight hard. I've seen every one of you. I've seen you fight for the pumpkin patch during the planning, and I've had several conversations with all of you. I really respect that, and I think everybody behind me should definitely be proud of you guys being here, because you got to protect every one of them if the time comes, when the time comes. So I really want to thank you for that, and I want to thank the staff as well. They've been super helpful, very communicative with us. So I'm glad that you're here, because I'm the victim of bad planning. So the original plan was done with my property being R1, R2, and that's why it's sat idle for the last 17 years. There's no way you can develop a single-family home, a multi-million-dollar home next to a sewage plant. It's just not going to work. It was done for a reason. It was assigned that zoning because none of my family was there during the hearings. They didn't voice their opinion, and that's the reason I was given at that time. So here I am. I want to thank you for taking the time to really consider what was done wrong and try to correct it going forward. So I appreciate that, but I'd rather spend my time more, not so much on our land, but on the project that you have on hand in general. This plan is really well thought through. It's not just, didn't just pop up last month when everybody realized it's happening. It's been in the works since I've been involved before the plan was resurrected. So 2008, 2009, 2010, I've been talking to the city. We've been trying to rezone my property industrial just because I'm so tucked away, far from any residential areas, far from any view of anybody down the hill from me. The Live Oak Canyon people, bless their souls, they should have been at the meetings that the Redlands City Hall voting no for their warehouses. They're living proof that this plan is going to work for us. They make the revenue in Redlands. They don't have a budget issue. We have a budget issue. We have a job issue. We have employment and opportunity issues. They don't. So don't let them tell us what we need to do for this city. It's an amazing city. Yes, the canyon is beautiful, but what's really important for all of us to recognize right now is our partners that we have. We have amazing partners with the Pacific Oaks. These folks have a check in hand, but that's not the only motivation. They have a check in hand to solve our issue right now, but they've taken a lot of time to design a beautiful plan that literally they're moving earth. They're moving earth just to cover their warehouses. So I hope that we would vote yes for that both plans.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Joanne Lassard, followed by Ms. Gabrielle Allen.
My name's Joanne Lassard, and I live in Redlands. This plan affects us in eastern Redlands more than it does Yucaipa. I would like to thank you for your service to the community and to congratulate you thus far on maintaining a beautiful, people-centered city. Yucaipa has thrived as it is. It has thrived because it's rural. It's thrived because of what it is now and has been. Although I'm a woman, I'm a proponent of cowboy wisdom that says, don't piss in the wind, don't squat with your spurs on. In other words, don't do things that you will probably quickly or even later regret. To cause problems that would easily be avoided is just not too smart. There are two things that are basic to human life and needs. They are our health and our environment. Without good physical health, we have nothing. The environment offers us pure water, clean air, food production, enjoyment, and mental health by giving us beauty and ways to escape the stress of life. A warehouse and commercial development in Live Oak Canyon sabotages both our health and our environment. No financial gain is worth the damage to us, all personally, or a good life here in Redlands and Yucaipa. A warehouse could be vacant like those in Calamasa and Beaumont, and hence not even provide the low-paying jobs it is promised. At this point, I'd like to leave my script and talk about wildlife corridors. With the housing in Beaumont and the warehousing in Calamasa and Beaumont, probably the very last wildlife corridor between the mountains and the open space areas and mountains of Riverside County is now through Live Oak Canyon, and especially after the fires. We have videos of mountain lion, bear, and other wild animals. And my suggestion is that we seek funds from the Department of Transportation to mitigate the problems that the wildlife have. And I think that it's a long shot, but it is, like I say, probably the last wildlife corridor. And the Department of Transportation does care about wildlife corridors.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Gabrielle Allen. Followed by Mr. Robert Ramos.
Hello, my name is Gabrielle. I live at 34936 County Line Road. I don't have anything written down, just wanted to express a couple thoughts. When I drive eastbound on the 10 freeway, coming up from Redlands towards Yucaipa, traffic is crazy. It doesn't matter if it's lunchtime, afternoon, evening time, it's pretty bad. When I get off on County Line Road, I have a beautiful, beautiful building to the right, a beautiful warehouse that's being built right there right now. When I turn left to go up County Line Road, I'm thinking about driving a Jeep because the road is, you have to go four-wheeling in order to get up to my house. When I drive back down to Redlands, when I leave my house, I have sunshine. As soon as I hit the freeway to go down to Redlands, I see all the smog, everything just laying beautiful and gray below me. I've had cancer within the last 3 times, 2 different types of cancers. I am concerned about the environment, about the air, about my son, my animals. And one of the reasons why I moved to Yucaipa was it was beautiful, just beautiful. And I'm not sure which direction we're going. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Robert Ramos, followed by Mr. Tim Mullins.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, concerned citizens of Yucaipa. Thank you for letting me talk today. My name is Robert Ramos. I am the representative of the Ironworkers, Local 416 Reinforcement. I'm here today to speak for this project. Why? When we started this presentation, we seen you guys had budget issues. This is going to help stimulate the economy first, right? But that's not the only thing. A lot of people, we as construction workers also evolved. How did we evolve? The way we build things now is more green. Example, our iron is 90% from recyclable materials, right? That's a good thing. Concrete as well, right? So we are changing. This project right here is a great project. Why? Because it's with the latest codes, the latest environment how you could build warehouses, that residential, and all that other stuff. So it's a plus, right? We are concerned about air. Everybody needs to breathe, right? But we are making changes in that. If you talk about the diesel trucks, guess what? A lot of the companies are going full electric already. That's a plus, right? FedEx is one, right? I can tell you they have a full electric fleet, most fully electric fleet, I'm sorry. So that's a big plus. Everything's evolving. We got to embrace change. A lot of us don't like it, but we got to embrace it, right? And by doing it smartly. This project is built and designed great. So I urge you to vote yes tonight on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tim Mullins, followed by Mr. Robert Rensler. Thank you.
And Tim Mullins, District 5. Mr. Thorpe is my councilman. Thank you, sir. Many of the comments everyone said here, I agree with that are against the warehouse plan. And I just ask you gentlemen to look through the packet. And as you go through that packet, you'll see that it states, like the folks said, we can't mitigate it, so just approve it. Can't mitigate, go approve it. We all need to live, we all need to breathe. So I just ask that each one of you really think about what we're doing. And I do believe those words right behind you, in God we trust. I trust that God put each one of you where you're sitting now. And I ask you to really ask him for guidance, because we all need guidance. We all want the same thing. We all want life. We all want work. But please ask him for guidance so that we can keep Yucaipa as a place to live for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robert Rensler.
For the record, I'm a resident of District 1. I am deeply concerned about the adverse health effects diesel truck air pollution associated with the proposed new warehouses in Yucaipa will bring to our city and region. I'm a retired cancer specialist physician who's lived in Yucaipa for the past 18 years. The Inland Empire area, including Yucaipa, has some of the worst air quality in the nation. Air pollution data mapped by ESRI on California's Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment website, it's oehha.ca.gov, look it up, shows that the portions of Yucaipa closest to I-10 from Yucaipa Boulevard to County Line Road already today have total diesel particulate air pollution at the 81st percentile, 99th being the worst possible. Okay, that's where we are today. The projected 350 diesel truck visits daily to the proposed new warehouses will add to this already high amount of our local air pollutants. Although diesel trucks comprise only 6% of the vehicles on California roadways, they emit 55% of the particulate matter air pollution. And if the revised figures for the traffic with this new specific plan, my hunch is that you've got more trucks and less cars. Less trips, but more trucks and less cars. Cars are far cleaner. Per a California Air Resource Board report on diesel particulate health matter impacts, diesel exhaust contains over 40 cancer-causing substances, most of which can readily attach onto the diesel exhaust particulates, which then enter our and our families' lungs as we breathe. Increased diesel truck traffic with its emissions will result in the production of increased amounts of the following air pollutants in our city and region: carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, volatile organic compounds, nitrogen oxide, and particulate matter. These all have documented adverse health effects, especially among people living close to roadways and freight handling facilities, such as warehouses. Particulate matter 2.5, also called soot, is of great concern. They are particles 2.5 microns microns or less in diameter in diesel exhaust, much less than the diameter of a human hair. They get so deeply into the lung when inhaled, they cannot be removed by the lung's defense mechanisms. Okay? So once there, permanent. Children, elderly persons, and people with pre-existing heart or lung disease
Thank you for your
are
comments,
most...
Doctor.
Pardon?
Thank you for your comments, sir. Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jim Butler. Mr. Jim Butler, followed by Mr. William Wesson. Somebody see Jim making his way up here? William, are you there? William Wesson, come on, we'll take you first. We'll wait for Jim and see if he comes up. Mr. Doug Palmer, you're on deck.
Hi, my name is William Wesson. I live off of Colorado Street. And there's been a lot said tonight. So I think it'd be nice to give everybody's ears a break and just listen to that still small voice and size it's been called for a little bit. And that's the sound of Live Oak Canyon when it's quiet. Now imagine all those trucks going through there. All the wildlife that'll get disturbed by these warehouses. So I'd just like to remember that silence. Think about what you hear instead of the wind of the trees. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jim? Mr. Butler?
Jim Butler, 35841 Eureka Avenue. Moved here in 1986, and we were not a city at that time. I think we had 3 elections before we became a city. We became a city so we could control growth and keep some of the rural atmosphere. I moved out here from Monrovia, where the traffic was horrendous, and we moved out here to ride our horses. Excuse me, I get nervous. And so we used to be able to ride all over Yucaipa, anywhere we wanted to go. And now with the growth that has gone on in Yucaipa, we can no longer ride on the streets safely. A lot of us don't, and we mostly have to trailer. So my concern in the canyon is that I've been driving that for 28 years, going back and forth to Moreno Valley. I was a park supervisor over there, and I've seen anything you can see over there. People speeding by you, people crashing into the guardrails, burros getting hit. You know that the trucks are gonna go down that road, and it's just, not to mention the train. I just went down there Saturday. I was there for 2.5 hours because they're not supposed to park more than 45 minutes. But I didn't know it hit a car. So when we put a warehouse in Yucaipa, we're gonna impact Redlands, and you impact those folks. That's the last of our rural up here, other than the North Bench and up in Wildwood Canyon. That's our rural. That's what we hand our kids. The Robinsons, I love the pumpkin patch, but I go around it. I know when they're gonna have their big stuff. And so I go around that traffic, but that's the only intersection that you can get anywhere. You try to go down Yucaipa Avenue, you're gonna be stuck in traffic. You go down to Redlands, you come back, you're stuck in traffic. You add a bunch more trucks there with all these empty warehouses somewhere else. We could use a nice hotel in this town, less than $180 a night. How about something good to catch the people going to Cherry Valley to make some money for the taxpayer? But anyway, there's plenty of ways. We don't need to be in a hurry to develop that. I don't think the Robinsons are in a hurry, and I hope the Palmers aren't in a hurry, but we impact Redlands and we impact that intersection. Right now, this intersection, the In-N-Out Burger goes around.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
guys.
I think I misspoke.
Thank
Mr.
you
Chris
for
Palmer?
approving the rodeo.
Mr. Chris Palmer, followed by Ms. Christine Muller.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I'm Chris Palmer. I'm one of the directors and owners of the Palmer land. Multiple generations. My grandfather bought the land over a handshake back in 1954. My grandfather's intention was never to have the land be open space, but to yet be a place for value creation for the family and for the community. I really thank you for your comments about ownership. That means a lot to me. I feel that's America, and that's what we're here for. I raised my family in Yucaipa. I lived on the North Bench for 10 years. I currently did move a few years ago, but it's been extremely important to my brothers and I that we create value for the community, that we're good stewards of our land. That's why we sold, when my late brother Greg passed away, we ended up selling the pumpkin patch to the Ramesons because we knew that they'd be stewards, that they would keep that legacy. I worked at the Christmas tree farm as a tree cutter when I was a little kid and going to high school. I went to Redlands High School. So it's always been important to us, and we appreciate the Ramesons, what they're doing. And when we chose Pacific Industrial, we pass up other offers, higher offers. We met with countless developers, residential developers, industrial developers, commercial developers, everybody. And Pacific resonated with us that they would be people that would be good stewards of the land in the city of Yucaipa, that they would bring value to the community. We could build 2,000 homes or more back there, but that's not going to add value to the community. It's going to add no tax revenue. It will add huge amounts of traffic. In fact, we could potentially even build more, but we're trying to develop something that adds value to the community, that's fair and that's balanced, and that leaves a lasting mark. It was always very important for our family that whatever we built, when we look back at the Target development, when we looked at Costco, all of those things, that it was a aesthetically pleasing development. We passed on several others. They just wanted to throw big boxes of buildings where the pumpkin patch was. And we said, no, we need it to be something that's nice to the community. So I want you to know that the Palmer family is in support of the specific plan. And we chose Pacific Industrial for their character, for the people that they are, and we appreciate this, and I appreciate all that you're doing for the community. This does make me proud of the city of Yucaipa to see you as city council members taking this into consideration and balancing all of the thoughts and the concerns. And I'm very aware, and I respect all of the thoughts and the concerns, but I do feel that Pacific has met all of those concerns to the best of the capabilities that are out there in the state of California, in our country, in our world, and where we're at right now. This is a phenomenal project. It benefits all of the landowners, the Robinsons, the ISA, the Palmers. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments, sir. I'm not going to hold the fact that you're a Redlands High School alum against you when I make a decision either. Ms. Muller.
Candidate Christine Muller, District 4. I'd like to offer some insight from somebody who sat on the original Freeway Corridor Committee. It was a committee made up of 2 city councilmen, 2 planning commissioners, and representatives from the different committees, as well as the public at large. We were very vigilant to keep the commercial and retail as close to the freeway. Fermin, can you put up that map again? If you notice the red, that map with the red, the original plan, if you notice the red areas were very small and located right off the freeways. The whole idea wasn't to put large industrial or heavy industrial. It was to put something like a Costco or a Trader Joe's or something like that. So it was light industrial. So the areas in red, can you put it up there? You don't have it anymore? The areas that were in red were very small, and it would not accommodate a warehouse of this size. I totally am in harmony with the other folks that got up here and spoke against it. But you have to realize that there's 2 buildings. These 2 buildings are each 1 million square feet. There's 178 docking bays. There's 410 truck parking stalls. and there's 515 passenger parking areas per building. So do that times 2. If there's 350 vehicle truck traffics per warehouse, that's 700 for both of them, and they're making trips in and out. That's 1,500 trips. Now put the 1,000 people coming and going, that's another 2,000 trips. 2,500 homes is approximately 6,000 people. Now let's talk about the EIR. That EIR is over 17 years old. That was done in 2008, and we were quite different then. We didn't know what was coming further east. We didn't know about those warehouses. We didn't know about the drought. We didn't know about a lot of things. And so to do a supplemental EIR for an EIR that's really expired twice over is putting Band-Aids on top of Band-Aids, and it doesn't make sense. So really, logically, today, you can't approve that 17-year-old EIR that has a lot of supplementals to it. And if you read the rationale of why you should approve it, I would say that I would challenge that, because there is no mitigation measures that override the harm that it does to our citizens. So for that very reason, you cannot, I would ask you not to vote for this. It just doesn't make sense. The little tiny light industrial that we had planned all those years ago is nothing like this.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Michelle Poe. Michelle Poe, followed by Mr. Doug Palmer.
Hi, I'm Michelle Poe. I live at...
Can you talk to the mic, please?
I live at 20853 Monarch Lane in Huntington Beach. And first of all, I just want to say thank you guys for being here. I know it's a thankless job and a lot of work, and we appreciate all you do to take care of everybody here. I wanted to take a second to talk about my grandfather, Grant Robinson. He came from a poor family, and he became the father figure of his family at a young age, and he had to start working hard and take care of his sisters, his brothers, his mom, and he did that his whole life. And he was a man who saw opportunities, and he went for them. And that is how he ended up acquiring the land here in Yucaipa, because of hard work and because he took advantage of opportunities. Hold on one second. So, like Mr. Palmer said, they did not intend for this handshake deal to turn into open, we're going to have open space for the rest of our lives. And at the time, it looked possible to have development, and there was no reason to think there were restrictions at that time. But over the years, it's just gotten harder and harder. And I think that there's a way that you guys could make this happen and make everybody happy to develop the land. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I do know that the plan that you guys, that's being presented tonight, is not exactly perfect for everyone here. And I would hope that you vote to revise the plan to benefit, hopefully, all the members of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Doug Palmer.
Mayor Beaver and council members, thank you for allowing me to talk. I'm David Palmer. Doug allowed me to take his space. Is that all right that I take his spot? I had anticipated speaking as part of the presentation on the project. I represent the Palmer family, and we truly do care about the community. Greg and I and his wife Willie did the Christmas tree farm early on and raised up that and have good intentions. I've served for decades on city committees and county committees trying to help. The Live Oak Canyon Committee that Dave Matusak talked about, I formed when I was 26 years old. And we did that to stop a concrete block manufacturing plant from being placed next to the pumpkin patch. We thought that was the right thing to do. We're not selling out. I've had people tell me that it doesn't matter that my father and grandfather wanted to make an investment for their children, 52 of them, that benefit 300 to 400 family members. They've told me that we should give the land up. We don't think that's right, that people are entitled to do something with their land. The Palmer property and the Ramerson property and the Robinson property are the only properties along the Freeway Corridor that are undeveloped. It doesn't seem right to me that we should be asked or forced to not do something. We have tried hard in this community to be a part of it. Willie still lives here. I live in Redlands. We've been a part of it. We have many friends here. We love them. I know hundreds of people from community involvement, from church. Some don't agree with what I'm proposing we do. Some do. We love them. We respect their differences. And we are open to meeting their concerns. As Chris said, we looked hard to find a developer of high integrity. And Pacific is that. They tried from the beginning to do the right thing. Our land sits between the freeway and a sewage treatment plant. The odor makes it difficult to do anything else. This is an appropriate use. We've tried with them. They worked from the beginning. They talked to the Redlands groups and said, this is what we're proposing. What would you like? They've talked to Yucaipa groups early on. They talked to council and city managers. They've gone to great length to hide the buildings from view, to save open space in front, to preserve the hillsides. The only thing that will be seen is some truck traffic. We think based on the traffic analysis that that's relatively minimum. We support that. Let me end just by saying, I know you have a tough job, and I appreciate what you do to look out for both aspects of the community.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Moving on to applicant rebuttal. Pacific Oaks.
Hello, gentlemen. Can you hear me here?
Yep.
A little taller, I guess, than most. My name is Dan Floriani, and I'm the founder of Pacific Industrial. And I don't know if a rebuttal is the appropriate word today, because I want to echo what other people were saying. First of all, we've met with tons of other groups. We're open to hearing different opinions. We know not everyone's going to come celebrate and high-five us, but I can tell you we've worked openly and with the entire community, including the pumpkin patch, which we love, and surrounding landowners. We've met with environmental groups that directly oppose most of anything that anyone proposes as far as future development, any city, and been open to hearing critical feedback. Some of the biggest things we heard when we originally proposed this project, which was in concert based on actually underlying feedback from the city, that they wanted to move the warehouses off the freeway. They wanted somebody to do it thoughtfully. They wanted to have a huge chunk of open space, and they wanted somebody to address the traffic that already exists in the community that we all know. And we methodically went down that path to do just that. And we are mitigating a ton of those issues, including doubling the capacity of the current road that exists there today. And we do not even come close to doubling the traffic that is coming on that road. We all know, and I've driven it and been to the pumpkin patch plenty of times, we knew that was a big concern to mitigate it, and we actually have an alignment of interest to do that too. We do not want a project that has terrible traffic to navigate in this city. But the reality is, what the Palmers just also indicated, is this is a property that sits in between the 10 freeway and a sewage treatment plant. And there isn't necessarily a much better appropriate use there. And so, look, we come in understanding the dynamics of this and how difficult this is in communities. I just want at least the residents of this community to know whether you're for or against us. So we appreciate hearing your voices. That's part of this process. We would meet with any of you if you really want to and talk about it, because we did not approach this in a way to maximize profits or do something that is self-serving. It's why we have our own company. We try and do something that's a little different than most, take a thoughtful approach, understand the concerns, and design something that's unique. And in this case, I would say that we are trying to propose something that would be one of the most unique developments in the industrial world in the entire Southern California region. I can bore you and point to 10 different reasons why, but it's not by accident, and it's definitely not to maximize profits. It's an attempt to do the right thing for what we focus on. So I appreciate you guys and you taking the time to hear the good and the bad on both sides of this argument, because it is clearly a dynamic one. But I want to also thank the staff and everyone we've worked with in this city from your level down have been really good people and trying to do the right thing. And even when people disagree, there's a reason to have this open communication and be able to discuss the issues that are difficult to solve. You can't solve a budget issue without creating jobs and revenue in the city. It's the same people that would also sit here and complain about the potholes in the road and not having a fire department respond when they have an emergency and not having police departments show up at their door the second they need something. These are all related issues. And while we play a tiny role in that, I just wanted you to know that I appreciate it. We're always open to talking to people, and I'm sure there's a million other things we could address, but I just wanted to get a chance to thank you guys. I understand your difficult position that you're in, but you're making a decision for the 55,000 residents of this community and not the 200 people that might have been in this room, and that's a big decision. And I just really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, because I probably rambled through that just to make sure I got some of my voice across for you and for everyone who took the time to sit here and not be with their families today. And so if you have any questions, I'm happy to stand up here and try and answer a few of them. If not, I'm sure you guys probably want to go home too.
Further questions for the applicant? No questions specifically to the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Time is 8:40. I will close the public hearing of item number 20, the Freeway Corridor Specific Plan and Pacific Oaks Commerce Center. And we will move on to council discussion. Start from right to left. Councilman Duncan.
I just want to make sure that I understand that the decision, if we decide to reschedule this or move this forward as far as the specific plan, and we approve the EIR, that doesn't lock down the way that the specific plan is laid out now. The fact that the EIR is approved, is there room for change if we push the item forward?
Councilmember Duncan, there are two separate actions. The first is to certify the subsequent environmental impact report. The second is to actually make changes to the general plan, specific plan, and the conditional use permit. Those are separate and distinct actions. You can certify the EIR. All you're doing is acknowledging the work that has been put into the environmental document and finding that it is complete and accurate. But one of the actions you can take after reviewing that environmental impact report is no action, or you can table it if you'd like. If you do not approve the general plan amendment, the specific plan amendment, then none of the changes to the zoning will go forward. You'd simply be acknowledging the environmental work that had been conducted.
Councilman Thorpe.
So to piggyback off of that question that Councilman Duncan asked, so there's been a lot of negotiations or meetings with the property owners over the past several months. So there are things like in the errata sheet and things of that nature that have been addressed and looked at. Does that come back to ground zero, square one, and starting over if we certify the EIR and we push the specific plan back at a later time? Or do we still get to look at some of those talking points or points of agreement that they've had with the city and maybe some other folks. Because it's a concern, it's been voiced that they wouldn't have basically a voice at the table after that.
Again, the certifying the environmental impact report is simply acknowledging the environmental work and the studies that were conducted. It does not change the zoning of any of the properties, and it does not prohibit this council from in the future considering something completely different than you've looked at tonight.
Let me add to that. When we started to circulate the EIR after all the studies had been done, a number of the landowners came forward to express that they had concerns at that point with the plan. And there were extensive discussions with a number of the property owners. Some of the requests from those property owners were able to be accommodated within the scope of what was studied through the EIR. Many of the requests from landowners could not be addressed without having to go back and do additional studies, because the environmental impact report studied a plan that was proposed by the council in 2022 and then moved forward to the EIR process. So, for example, if the EIR studied a certain number of acres of commercial and we had a request to change zoning to increase that amount of commercial on a particular property, we would have to go back and reopen do additional studies, additional environmental work to accommodate that request. So I think that the entire body of work that has been done through the EIR and then subsequent discussions with landowners, none of that goes away. But depending on the direction of the council tonight, for example, if the direction tonight is go back to the drawing board with this plan and continue working with the property owners to come up with something that's more palatable to them and to the community, that doesn't mean that everything that's been discussed goes away. It just means that we now have, if the intent is to change the plan and then to later go back and do additional environmental work, it just means that the guardrails are off in terms of what was already studied. It doesn't mean that everything that's already been discussed is off the table.
Thank you for explaining that. I've got a couple other things. So if this whole thing were to go forward, this process with the warehouses coming in, this has been in process for what, 2+ years?
4 years, I think, 4 years.
4 years? Okay. So I think if we were to entertain the idea of warehouses coming in, this is probably the best option that's out there, willing to move, I don't know the tonnage of dirt, but there's a lot of dirt they're willing to move. Aesthetic, trying to keep it so it's not visible, basically kind of opposite of everything of the most recent one that we had going. But the diff funds, so let me, before I say this, let me go back. So we have an operating deficit of $7 million, right? We trimmed that down from 15. Prior councils and prior administrations, for whatever reason, decided to fund infrastructure for different projects here in the city, and we loaned to ourselves. So we pulled from the general fund, and we spent money to go put infrastructure in so that, in essence, build it and they'll come. The commercial and that sort of stuff will come in, right? What is that total that we owe ourselves? Is that like $26 to $28 million?
In that neighborhood.
Okay. So I understand all the comments that people have made and their concerns, health and traffic and everything else. The diff fees for this project alone, if this were to go through, is about $14 million.
Correct.
So that would, in essence, don't correct me, Phil, but probably half of what we owe ourselves. That's a pretty good shot in the arm. And we're not able to put money back in the general fund till that debt goes away. And if we bring in shopping centers, large shopping centers, things of that nature, they might be able to match that, but it would take a significant project to be able to wipe out that other $14 million. So it's not a scare tactic, but we're talking numbers, and we've got to remember that the warehouses isn't, are we going to have warehouses? It's kind of where we want to put them. Now, granted, somebody said we could probably recall that. Yeah, maybe that's a possibility. But financially speaking, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, but we have an obligation to fix our debt. I mean, I don't owe it to anybody else but ourselves, but we got to fix it. We can't just forgive it and just go, oh well, move on. $28 million is a lot of money. And I think the work that Pacific is willing to put into it, and again, for all transparency, I've met with Pacific, and I've met with property owners, and I've met with people of the public, and I've met with entitlement specialists. I've met with about everybody I can think of, trying to educate myself. I'm not in this business, but what they're willing to do, I think is far more workable than what probably would be out there if we're going to have warehouses. I just want us to keep that in mind about our financial aspect. That's all I have right now.
So just moving forward with comments, we'll table motions for now, but any comments, questions? Mayor Pro Tem Venable.
Yeah, I'm in construction, you know, and I deal with trucks all the time. And when you come up to a stop on a truck and you labor into that truck, you're blowing that much more soot in our environment, right? Other than driving down the freeway at the top speed, it's the leanest as it can go. So when you stop at Live Oak Canyon Road and you power in to make that right turn, you got 80,000 pounds of weight on those trucks, right? And you turn on that road. Who maintains that road? Is that the city?
Are you talking about Live Oak Canyon Road?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, the city.
So the city has to maintain that road.
Correct.
So you got 80,000 in, the doctor said that there's 350 loads coming in. So that's 700 loads altogether, right? At 80,000 pounds each time. And it's not too long before we have to start maintaining that road. So that impact fee that we get, it's going to start getting chipped away at as we get going. And so it's a really tough situation. It's a beautiful project. It really is. It's tucked back there. You can't see it, but you can feel it. We can feel it. As far as the doctor even said, the particulate filter, the particulate that comes out of those, the exhaust that comes out of those when you come up to a stop sign and you labor into that to make that right-hand turn or that left-hand turn to go down that road, that's that much more soot and impact on here in Yucaipa. And we're one of the worst ones already. I don't think that we need that extra. Plus, like I said, you got 80,000 pounds, 750 times a day, or 700 times a day. And that's just a small one, right? 350, doctor? He said 350 loads about. Oh, so there's 700, there's 1,400. So altogether and stuff. And that's 8,000 pounds each time because they're loaded all the way to the gilts and everything like that and stuff. And so it's a tough situation and stuff. And so as we're chipping away at the money that we bring in at the beginning, we still get a little bit of fees and stuff. But is it going to eventually go to where we're upside down? I believe so. So that's my concerns.
Councilman Gardner.
Yeah, I think the EIR questions were answered. I had some questions. I think you guys answered that. And again, I still feel that this project is not ready yet. So that's where I stand.
So we do have a lot to consider. The future of our community and our valley, the financial impact. Early on, somebody spoke about property taxes not being great enough to offset the impact. And this is where I have questions about this project specifically, and truly trying to come back to the board potentially with ideas of how we're going to capture not just property tax, but perhaps sales tax revenue, and really get creative on that regard. It was mentioned that this is our home, and the fact that this was quickly shoved upon us by the last administration is hard for me to palate. I think there's too many questions that I have. I think the community has these same questions. I also am curious to know if there truly are, is it truly impossible to mitigate? Specifically, we have the pollution that comes up almost every speaker spoke of it. But then there were people speaking about these electric vehicle mandates, and are we going to see any type of mitigation with that? And I'd hate to see us make a decision about the present when the future holds possibilities of mitigating that we don't know of yet, or we're not studying. Perhaps that wasn't studied. So I do have some questions about other opportunities along the Freeway Corridor. I've said, I think Coach Matuziak heard me say when he objected to digital billboards on the freeway, that if we're going to develop parts of Yucaipa, it had better be near the freeway and not on the North Bench and not into the deep parts of Yucaipa. I don't think there's anything remotely rural about the Interstate 10 freeway. I've said that several times. That's the busiest stretch of highway in the nation, which lends weight to why we have probably the worst air in the area, because it is so not rural. But I think we need to be smart about how we're going to develop that. It's going to develop, I'm certain of that. And it may not be the gentleman sitting on this dais that approved that plan. It may come down 20, 30, 40 years down the road. But I do believe that area eventually will be developed. We just have an opportunity right now to truly direct the way that looks. And I don't think that we've hit the mark as it relates to that on this Freeway Corridor specific plan. And for that reason, this public hearing, case number 24-044, I don't think, let me rephrase, I cannot support. We're not there. And I think in my motion, when we get to that part, I hope that I can include some language to truly have more community involvement, because somebody also said early on, they use the word mediation, right? There may be a project out there that people do not like, but they can tolerate. And each side of the argument might feel they lost a little bit, but it's something they can deal with. And at this point, we're not there. I think that at this point, there will be a clear winner and an overwhelming people who felt like they lost. And I think too many of those people are my constituents, so I have to consider that. Before we move on to any votes or motions, we'll go through with the ex parte communication.
One more thing, though. So one of the speakers said that in 2008 there was an EIR done, and that what we have before us now is a supplemental to that EIR. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, but we actually have our consultant and Bailey who can address that question.
Yeah, so I can kind of provide, and then we do have place where it's available. So the EIR was certified in 2008, so that established what the land uses are. We did do a comprehensive update to all the analysis for this one. So in terms of relying on the facts and circumstances and information that's 17 years old, no, it's been refreshed as part of this. And so a number of technical studies were done specifically in this time period for the EIR. So we're not relying on a 17-year-old document, but because the existing freeway corridor is already in place, we're documenting how the impacts change with the update versus the existing that's already been approved.
Does that answer your question, sir, or do you? Okay, Placeworks.
Just to add what Ben was saying, I'm Nicole Vermillion, I'm with Placeworks. We prepared the CEQA document. So in California, we have a CEQA statutes and a guidebook that kind of dictate how we need to implement the CEQA process. And so our CEQA document we prepared was actually called a subsequent EIR in accordance with section 15162 of the CEQA guidelines, and it's done when there are substantial changes to the original CEQA document. So we're not relying on the old environmental analysis. We're updating all the environmental conditions to reflect the updated circumstances.
So that includes considering the initial EIR. And
Yes.
It was mentioned that we're a substantially different community. The makeup of commuters perhaps traversing in and out of Riverside County by way of Yucaipa looks different. So we're considering that data as well.
Yeah, we had an updated traffic study that considered, the latest and greatest traffic models and tools. Yes.
Okay.
Answer to your question.
Thank you.
So if we approve this SEIR tonight, and then we decide to make modifications to the Freeway Corridor specific plan, then that EIR would not have to be completely redone, but specifically if we decide to add 20 acres of commercial, which was residential, then just certain parts of that EIR has to be modified or restudied?
Well, you're asking a really specific question, but what happens when you certify an EIR is you're able to tier off that environmental document for the impacts that were identified. So you're able to rely on the updated setting and impact analysis, and we did all 20 environmental topical sections in this EIR, so that if you need to come back and make a new discretionary action, you're able to tier off the environmental analysis that was done. And you look at that, and you look at your new project, and you analyze, whether or not your new modified project results in new or substantial increase in impacts compared to basically your new CEQA document if you certify it.
And by way of ex parte, I've met with everybody since it was rejected at the Planning Commission. I started meeting with the Ramesons. I've talked to the Palmers. I've talked to Abraham Issa. I've talked to the Water Department. I've talked to staff. I've talked to one council member. So I've talked to a lot of people, and this thing has pretty much occupied my life for about the last 7 weeks. So to answer the question, I've talked to everyone.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Thorpe, ex parte.
I mentioned it earlier. I've met with the developer, the entitlement specialist, the city staff, the property owners, and multiple citizens here in Yucaipa. So in different districts, they don't have to all be from mine.
Spoke with the developers. I've spoke with concerned citizens and organized groups opposing the project. I've spoke with one of the property owners, the Robinson property owner, and by extension his the entitlement specialist. Mayor Pro Tem Venable.
I've talked to the Ramesons and Hicks. I've talked to a number of constituents in my area. I talked to the Robinsons. I talked to, what's his name, Isa?
Isa.
I've talked to him. I've talked to one of the other councilmen's. And that's about it.
Councilman Garner.
Yeah, I spoke with Craig Heaps. I've spoken with some of the property owners, some of the citizens here in Yucaipa, and staff. And that's it.
Thanks, sir. All right. In order to avoid any optics of me trying to have any type of political cover, I'll make the motion. So I move that we adopt a resolution certifying the EIR, including the mitigation measures, findings of fact, and statement of overriding considerations, but I move that we table the consideration of the ordinance, the conditional use permit, and the architectural design until such time as our city manager brings forth an amendment that addresses the concerns of the property owners and, more importantly, allows for additional time for our public review and our constituents to be involved, maybe some more town halls. We have to have more communication with this.
Mayor, I do know that Councilmember Gardner had given some very specific requests. I can read those back to you if you'd like, to see if you'd like them incorporated into your motion.
Please.
That the city manager holds stakeholder meetings with all property owners in the Freeway Corridor specific plan area that I believe own 10 acres or more. That the city manager prepare amendments to the Freeway Corridor specific plan update that addresses the concerns by those property owners to the extent that addressing those concerns is feasible. That the city manager conducts any subsequent or supplemental environmental studies necessitated by such amendments. There may be additional environmental work that needs to get done. That the city manager has, in addition to any notice required under state law or the city's development code, posts copies of the amended specific plan update and any additional environmental studies on the city's website for at least 30 days. And that after that 30-day period, the city manager hold at least one community meeting where comments of the community can be heard and addressed prior to returning to the city council.
I'd like to see I have two. And also I want this item to be a standalone item when it returns. It needs to be held at a venue that can afford people the opportunity to not have to sit or stand for the entire time, and it needs to be a standalone item. It's as or more important as the wine country plan, and we need to afford it the respect that it deserves.
Did the city manager bring it forward as a standalone item at a special meeting?
Correct. That's my motion. Is there anyone who can second that?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilman Garner. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
No.
Motion carries 3-2. Moving on to public comment. This is an opportunity for you to speak on any matter that is not agendized on the city council agenda. We have several public speakers. Please be mindful of the time and be respectful. Dr. Hanson Wong, followed by Mrs. Colleen Wong. Yeah.
Hanson Wong, District 1. Am I missing someone?
1 second. Folks, if you could please be mindful of the fact that we still have an active city council meeting with public comments going on, and be respectful of the speakers. You got an EIR for that? I'm going to study the noise. All right, doctor, the floor is yours.
I don't have to wait for Councilman Duncan to come
I don't
back?
think he's coming back, sir.
Okay. All right, in the light of the time, I'm going to shorten my comments a little bit. I just want the city to focus on our current problem, which is the budget. If we look at the projects that we dealt with over the past year and a half, 2 years, however long, in fact, the budgetary problem was commented on even multiple years ago. But if you look at the wine country specific plan, we spent money on it. We have no immediate revenue. We might not have revenue for a few years. And in addition, there is, in my perception, additional housing that will cost us more money as far as infrastructure is concerned. So I marked that as increasing the structural deficit. There were other multiple land projects that were discussed and voted on by the city, and these particular projects, other than the general plan and the bonus densities, the Planning Commission and the city voted to add additional housing that again will add to our structural deficit. So we mark all of those projects as adding to our structural deficit. The perception of what the city does, obviously any individual, their salaries is only a small part compared to the 15 million, 7 million, whatever. On the other hand, the perception is the city is willing to spend additional money, adding to different projects in the communications area and in other areas, and is this the right time to do some of those things? I think not, but that's only my perception. I am also concerned about the fact that we don't look at certain aspects. I realize that we're making progress with YPAC, but we're still losing $500,000 a year. What are we doing about it? What is our city manager and city planners going to do to help us with the additional structural defect that causes for us? In addition, we tied up some money. Hopefully we don't need it, but we tied it up for 3 years in order to get a few percentage increase. If that is defaulted, which I hope not and most likely won't, then the city will own that, and the plans for that particular piece of land in some minds are to add to our Five Winds and entertainment. So in a way, we bought into the same thing that the prior city councils and prior managers have, in that if we build that area, they will come.
Thank you,
and I
Doctor.
disagree with that as well.
Thank you, Doctor. This is Colleen Wong.
Colleen Wong, from Yucaipa. This isn't about a company designing something that's bad, that the warehouse is bad for the community necessarily, except obviously the warehouse is obviously ugly. But it's not about not seeing the warehouse. It's about what is going to go into the air. It's about what it's going to do and what else it's going to do. It's not about seeing it. I don't care about what it's looking like. And it's lovely that I'm not going to see it if it's there. But it's also what it's going to do. You know, everything that is affordable, it's about what Calamasa is doing too. It's about those affordable houses that they're planning to put in. It's about what Yucaipa is originally was going to put in and may still put in, affordable housing. That's where we're supposed to put it. But if you have affordable housing, that's where kids put starter homes, they have families. Those kids are not going to be able to go out and breathe that air. It's already at 80%. If they have asthma, those kids aren't going to be able to go out and ride their bikes and play. And that's going to be on Yucaipa. That's going to be on us. That's going to be on our city planner because he planned the warehouse, this ugly warehouse that we hid behind a hill. And they aren't going to be able to play. And that's going to be on you guys if you vote for it. And I object to the EIR that we say we mitigated, and yet our city planner, by his own admission, says it's not mitigatable. And I don't know who here heard him say it was mitigatable, because I heard him say it wasn't mitigatable. Which one of you all heard him say it was mitigatable?
Mayor, the public hearing on that item is closed.
Oh,
This is for
I see it's
items on the agenda.
closed. Did he say it was mitigatable somewhere that y'all heard? Anybody hear him say it was mitigatable?
Mrs.
Because
Wong.
I sure didn't.
Mrs. Wong, okay, well, we are going to have at least 2 town hall meetings to talk about this more in depth. I do want to.
He already said it wasn't.
Why are you yelling?
Because
We're all being.
away from the microphone.
Oh, okay. I heard you loud and clear, by the way. All right. Mrs. Josette, followed by Mrs. Rowe Randolph, and I apologize again for my pronunciation earlier.
So I'm Joe Sutton. I live in Wildwood Canyon Mobile Home Estates. And I want to address an incident that occurred several meetings ago. Frankly, I'm surprised that it has not been addressed formally until now. Although everyone I've spoken to around the community has expressed sentiments similar to mine, ranging from disbelief and embarrassment to outrage. This is an uncomfortable topic, and yet I think it needs to be spoken to, so I'm going to speak to it. The climate in Yucaipa has been quite contentious and ugly for some time now, and the division between the governing powers of the city of Yucaipa and the residents continues to widen. When people are passionately opposed, it is human nature to feel the urge to sling insults and name-call each other. Some of us have a harder challenge than others in resisting that urge and holding ourselves to a higher standard. In these chambers, it is the responsibility of the mayor to control the meetings and maintain decorum. That's a really difficult job, and Mayor Beaver has been doing a good job, making good efforts at doing that. Generally, when someone in the audience during council meetings loses control and speaks or behaves disrespectfully or inappropriately, he stops them and reminds them to correct their behavior and warns them that they will be escorted out if the offensive behavior continues. He adopts a firm but respectful approach. Thank you for that. The incident I want to discuss did not involve an audience member. I was shocked and disturbed to witness a tirade by a council member who spewed foul references to various individuals who have repeatedly had serious issues with him. His rant expanded to include a much wider range of "you people" and "your crap," with him labeling concerned constituents evil and domestic terrorists, etc. Even if he has experienced their behavior as irritating, insulting, or attacking, the use of such slurs and his statement mocking the code of conduct, suggesting that you can shove that code of conduct where the sun don't shine, should not have been tolerated in complete silence by Mayor Beaver. The councilman should have been reprimanded and escorted from the room, as any audience member would have been. This inequitable treatment could do nothing but further widen the gap in respect between the city and the people. Surely this is not the goal we're striving for.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ro Randolph, followed by Ms. Kathy Sellers.
What I'm going to say probably doesn't want to be talked about, but we're talking about the deficit. And what I'm looking at when we pulled up the budget was we could save $5 million in 2 years doing three things. Take your department heads, 7% off their salaries. And that's your city manager. I mean, you got about 30 of them on your list on the website. Second would be definitely go into your operational expenses, 10%, 2 years. And then you have a government affairs department that was what, $979,000 a year. Eliminate it, outsource it. Right there, we would have about $5 million in 2 years by citywide reduction of all your department heads. 7%, 10%. Nobody wants to talk about that, but we can't afford it. There's no way we can sustain those kind of salaries. And why we're not even talking about that, but we want to do a Measure I to increase sales tax. And then if we don't do that, we're going to close a fire station. There was talk about the swimming pool, the senior citizen. You can't do that. Why are we not cutting these fine people's salaries by 7%? These guys, some of these guys make outrageous money. The city manager was over like $340,000 a year, somebody said. That's like $300 an hour. Your assistants, $313. I mean, it goes on. I was so shocked when I was reading those 30 department heads. I'm like, how do we afford that? We're Yucaipa. We're not Orange County. We need to reduce it 7%. They'll still live comfortable lives. I don't even make $300 an hour. But I'm supposed to pay that? We supposed to pay that? Let's do that. We don't need to build well houses. We don't need to build all this stuff. We need to cut this down. 2 years, $5 million just doing those three acts. Think about it. And you talk about, oh, we need this kind of money to offset that. We can cut this. We can reduce. We don't need to destroy the land. We don't need to die. There's other ways of doing it. Let's think about that. It's numbers. It's a number game. Mr. Thorpe. That's what I'm saying. $5 million in 2 years. 3 or 4 things.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Kathy Sellers, followed by Dr. Terry Boone.
Kathy Sellers, District 1. I have a question I'd like answered tonight. If you won't answer, you have my email, and I'd appreciate an answer before the next council meeting. Regarding the $4 million loan that was made with our tax dollars to the property owner on Oak Glen Road, are those payments current, and have there been any delinquent payments? I'd also like to know why and who made the decision tonight to force all of these citizens to wait in the lobby and crushed in the entryway to these council chambers until 6 o'clock. City Hall belongs to us, It's disrespectful and a health risk with COVID on the rise. Many people here tonight have physical issues and need to be seated while we wait for you to enter the room. Please don't make this a regular occurrence. Thank you.
Dr. Boone? Dr. Terry Boone? I saw her earlier. I'll put it off to the side. Virginia Galter? She left. Mr. Tim Mullins? Thank you, sir. Miss Denise Work?
Hi, did you guys miss me? It's been a long time. Denise Work of 11640 Calvin. This does have something to do with the warehouses, but it also is the budgetary problem. So one of the first things that became apparent to me when I became a planning commissioner 20 some odd years ago was how little planning is actually involved. It seemed we were only reacting to landowners and developers that want to do something different. Our only real planning tool begins with the general plan. So it's important to respect the general plan. It's a plan that gives residents, landowners, and developers a roadmap. Land is the only resource a city has to sustain its existence. It's the base resource and the prosperity of which a community is both built and sustained, and it must not be squandered. We have to be careful with what we do because once you make a wrong decision, you're stuck with it. Like that Kentucky Fried Chicken sign that I always regretted saying that it was okay to put in. It's just, I hate those things. The citizens have been asked what can be done to improve financial situation in the city. So I have a few thoughts on that. The best chance to achieve fiscal balance is by increasing sales tax revenue. The plan with the warehouses and the new plan for the Freeway Corridor specific plan reduces the income producing property, the retail and commercial, by about a third. And best estimates are potential sales tax revenues are $350 per square foot. So a 30,000 square foot large box retailer equals $9,750,000 in average income and in sales tax revenue. So the average income for a family of 4 is $85,000. 2/3 of that income is spent on taxable goods, which is 29.56% or $25,000 a year. 33% of that, 29.5% in Yucaipa is spent elsewhere because we don't have the stores, we don't have the retail. So we're missing out on over $8,000 per household per year. That's an important point, is that there is no sales tax revenue from industrial land use business operations. Those warehouses, we're talking about money coming in. There's no money coming in. The $14 million is infrastructure.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Richard Hernandez. Followed by Mr. Brian Hugh.
She's right about having the cripples to wait for so long. Hello, my name is Richard Hernandez. I hope all of you can hear me. Some of the speakers here, unfortunately, I couldn't hear. And excuse me for saying I can't see that well. Your name is Beaver. What's the first name?
Justin Beaver, sir.
Justin Bieber. There was things that you had previously said that I couldn't hear very well. So I hope you can stay close to the microphone so everyone can hear every word that you say. I'm new to Yucaipa. I just moved in, say, less than a month ago. I don't know what all the issues are, but I hope you do pay close attention to all the residents and their concerns. My only hope is that you make your best judgment rather than, unfortunately, filling someone else's pockets or possibly your own. It's a type of reputation that's part of scrutiny as far as the public is concerned. I don't know any one of you individually, never have spoken to any of you, but from what I hear, boy, this place is really contaminated as far as breathing is concerned. 80%? That is truly amazing. I lived in City of Commerce, in between beautiful East Los Angeles and Bell. And prior to that, after that, I moved to San Bernardino. Disliked it with a passion. I lived north of Highland, but nonetheless, the things that you see and go through out there is ridiculous. I come out here and I hear all the residents speaking about things to them that are unjust, and it honestly makes me wonder. I remember when I was in junior high school, they had considered drilling a hole in the mountains to blow all the smog and everything else to the desert and that whole bit, which I thought was ridiculous, but these are the things we grow up with. You brought into the fact of warehouses being a stepping stone or catalyst for people's futures. Well, some people don't see a future. They only see that warehouse. They don't see beyond that. And that's a reality that everyone has to face. Unless they're educated or enlightened by other people or friends to see that, hey, this is a temporary thing for you. You need to move on. You need to progress in your life. Then they're never going to see it. I only say that because of my own experience. But like I say, I'm new here. I just moved in less than a month ago, and I hope you all make the right decision for the residents. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir, and welcome home. Mr. Brian Hugh, followed by Mr. Brandon Mild. Brian, are you here? No? Brandon? Is Brandon Mild here?
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for listening, everybody. I'm Brandon Mill, District 5. I know mostly everybody here tonight. I work for one of the larger real estate brokerages in town, one of the largest real estate teams in town that I manage. So as you can imagine, I hear everybody's opinions left and right of the city, both good and bad, and what brings them up here. I was going to talk during the warehouse, decided to talk during public comment, and I'm now pivoting my speech a little bit after the vote tonight. As you guys think about the next changes and what brings people to Yucaipa, you all know. Everybody comes here for the rural landscaped, the custom homes, the hillsides, all of that. But what's affecting values lately, and I'm pretty sure any real estate company in town would contest to this, is people have to drive too far for their goods. People give their money to Beaumont and Redlands. We don't have enough retail.
Brian, I'm sorry, 1 second. Can somebody go ask the people in the foyer, if I can hear them? I'm sure the people in the back can't hear what our speaker's saying. Okay, thank you.
We don't have enough retail stores and more bigger box stores to suffice everybody up here. So what's always brought people up here is the fact that they can get out of the traffic, get away from the total city life, and they love it up here. Now what's hindering it is everything is so far away. And because of that, traffic is getting bad between Beaumont, Calamasa, and us. So now that we don't have the retail stores, traffic onto that, it's starting to hinder values up here. And we're noticing it, especially the homes farther up on the hills. People don't want to be necessarily up in Hidden Meadows. They'd rather be in Chapman Heights, which it was flip-flopped 15 years ago. Because they're so far away, because it takes me roughly 15 minutes to go from Whisper Ranch at the top of county line down to the freeway now, because of the construction, the roundabouts, the traffic, everything going in. So that's where our clients are really struggling with moving up here, and that's where you're seeing them gravitate more towards Highland, Redlands, even Beaumont, but it's getting harder with the corridors. So as you guys look at changing some of this plan and looking at what goes in, I want you to take some of that into account. Because the traffic, the exits to our towns, everything, it's starting to affect the town. And when the town relies heavily on property values, you guys cannot take the chance of values starting to decline, because as those decline, your property taxes decline, your income declines. So, and that's gonna be the demise to the town if we don't start working on that. So just take that into account as you guys look at the next steps to changing the plan.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Jim D'Amico?
Thank you for indulging me. I'm having a hell of a day. I got here late, checked the wrong box, but I appreciate if you give me my minute and a half, 2 minutes. As I read through I normally can speak extemporaneously, but I'm exhausted like I'm sure all of you are. So let me just get through this. As I read through the relative documents online and listened to tonight's agenda and then watched the vote get muscled through, it made me think of the conversations I had with my 2 boys when they were teenagers. And anyone here who's partnered or parented a teenager knows what I'm talking about. It's the yeah, but conversation. No matter how well-reasoned or thought out or salient your points are, your teenager always comes back with yeah, but. So when I read through the documents and I saw that the destruction of wildlife corridors, smog increases in ambient noise and light, every item at the bottom was a yeah, but. And tonight, a yeah, but. So it's clear to me and to your constituents that some of you have made up your mind. So I'm not going to try to change your mind. But I would like you to take a look at this through your heart in the next period of time before you move again. And 2 things, just 2 short things. First, if you could bring a Corona City Council person or a Rancho Cucamonga Council person from 1995 here today, do you think they would proudly stand up and say, look what I did for my community, look at the legacy I left them, the snarled traffic, the pollution, the trucks can't get home from work, can't get to work? You think they'd be proud of that? And the second thing is, in your heart, you took the job, I imagine, for the sense of duty and the civic pride. I can see it in you. You know, this isn't easy for you, but I can see that you have pride in your city, and you should. But you listened and you watched your constituents stand and rise and raise their hand and say, we don't want this the way it is. Now, it's unquestionable that those properties will be developed. But what I'm asking you is, when you go through it again, even though you ramrodded that EIR through today, which is a huge step and it's a victory, anyway, when you go through it again with your heart, remember that people came to Yucaipa long before you did for the rural spaces, the open spaces, the lifestyle, and they don't want it changed. That's what they're telling you. So as you balance the future residents and businesses, please don't leave behind the current residents and businesses. And again, thank you for allowing me, even though I was late and unprepared. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to lead off with the councilman reports. I want to take a moment to acknowledge our first responders. I know we canceled our last city council meeting. Chief, destruction came knocking on our door yet again, and I saw how much better fire departments are about dealing with horrible things than police departments are. You guys work together so much better than we do. And some of these fire rigs from Oregon and Nevada, and just the call went out for all y'all to come and keep the bad stuff from happening. So thank you. To that point, the sheriff's department and your work with our allied agencies in the region, and the National Guard for keeping the communities that were evacuated safe. Thank you. It's a rough job. I'm gonna maybe step on toes a little bit, and I don't mean to, certainly, but I happen to know that the lifesaver that truly saved a life this weekend at the front end of a Union Pacific freight train happened to be a sheriff's department employee that is proudly employed by the Yucaipa Police Department, and you guys are heroes. Everything you guys do. So thank you, and please pass it along. That I want to thank him in the council. I saw all the work that you guys are doing, and it just reminds me of how much pride I have in our sheriff's department being our police department. So I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You guys are Yucaipa PD. I don't care if you don't wear blue. You are Yucaipa PD. That's why I call you chief instead of captain. I mean, it is what it is. You are our department head. So thank you. We have our 5 wins coming up. I hope to see everybody there. It's got some pretty impressive talent coming out. I don't see Megan, but please let Megan know that she's a rock star too. Getting Rodney Atkins, you kidding me? Coming to Yucaipa? I saw his video this week posted where he said Yucaipa. Might be the first time he's ever said it too. I'm happy that he's going to be here. So great work from the community services department. You guys are rock stars as well. So thank you. That's all I have. Sir.
Well, we have Autumn Fest this Friday and Saturday. It's looking like it's going to be fantastic again. And I know Megan's been really working hard to get that to where it's breaking even. I think that we're going to make money this year. I really do. 5 wins are coming, and I want to shout out to Vic Construction because they graded the area for the campsite. I think it was they did it voluntarily, pretty much, or donated a lot of time, right? So thank you for that, but try to show up for Autumn Fest this weekend.
Yep.
And then a Healthy Yucaipa, we are looking for some people. We only have, I think we need 3 or 4 people in Healthy Yucaipa. Our youth advisory is going strong. I think we have 2 or 3 candidates maybe coming up in the next one. One of them has like a 4.8 grade point average. It's incredible. But anyways, I thank you guys for all coming here, and you guys have a good day. All right, evening.
Sir? No? Sir? All right, Mr. City Manager, any announcements?
Nothing to add, thank you.
All right. Next city council meeting, Monday, October 28th, right before Halloween. I expect to see awesome costumes in the gallery. Maybe we can hand out an award for the most creative costume. All right, guys, thank you. We'll adjourn the meeting.